talk with Matt Derrick an hour from now. Hang out with him. Talk some Chiefs football with Matt Derrick. We will also talk with Daniel Holmes, RGR Football, Cover One podcast in the noon hour, and we'll talk some Chiefs with him. We'll talk about maybe some wide receivers with Daniel Holmes. He also did a more extensive, deeper dive film study into Jawaan Taylor, which we'll talk to Daniel Holmes about because, man, is it going to piss Sterling off. So we'll do that coming up in the noon hour. Really the only reason I wanted to have him on.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, he's looking at he's pointing out all the things and the reasons why Jawaan Taylor's really good and saying there's going to be a huge step forward for Jawaan Taylor next year. All these things are the reasons why the Chiefs brought him in, and probably in his head mentally with all the penalties and everything, that this is, well, you know what, let's get him on. Let's get him on the show, damn it, and let's talk with him while Sterling has to just sit there and eat his lunch.
I want him to be good. I want him to be good. I want to be proved wrong is what I want.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
I'm team negative reinforcement, Jawaan.
That's right.
Okay.
Nelsonville, you know what? It took a couple of weeks, but finally MJ got the negative reinforcement call. I mean, he finally heard it. Thank you. Walked. Saw a lot of pitches, hit a home. He saw 20 pitches and 2 at-bats. One of them was a home run. One of them ended up being a walk. Like, that's amazing because I don't know why I would ever throw a ball to that man. So I'm not sure. If he saw 12 pitches and 1 at-bat, it would be because he had an 0-2 count the entire time and kept fouling him off and fouling him off and fouling him off. I am not throwing a ball to that man. I'm going to let him get himself out or swing through a lot of pitches that seem hittable by other guys. But you know what? Maybe it's a breakout. Crushed that ball. Took a walk. Good at bats. Maybe. We'll see. We'll talk some Royals today, and we'll also talk about the NBA. The Mavericks wrap up the Western Conference in, 5 games.
Yeah,
not too bad. 5 games. So 9 total games we saw in the conference finals, and now we wait until next Thursday for the NBA finals to take place with the dynamic duos of Luka and Kyrie versus Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. The Celtics, the heavy favorites, they're minus 210 in the series. The over-under games in Vegas is 5.5.
Rip the over, dude.
Which, by the way, the juice is on the over. So you're looking at minus 150 for the over 5.5. So they set it at 5.5, and they expect it to go 6.
You think Kyrie's going to step on the old Boston logo at half court again? You think he's going to get right to half court and just...
No, I think
a little Raiders style.
No, I think he'll probably play like he did in Boston. So it'll be nice that he will experience what a deep run in the playoffs are in Boston. So good for Kyrie. That's great. I'm happy for Kyrie. Another superstar carried him to an NBA Finals. So now we'll see what he can do.
You're so wrong on this. Like
I know.
It makes me so mad that your anger towards
it's not
greatness.
Anger, it's more jokes. Oh, he's great. He's one of the best ball handlers I've ever seen and maybe the best finisher at the rim I've ever seen. He's also one hell of a coattail rider, so that's good too. You know, he does all of those things really well. All right, so let's talk some Royals. We start with the Kansas City Royals. They lose yesterday. Is it a giveaway game if you're down by 3 runs in the 6th, even though you're up 4-0?
Yes.
Does it count as one that you gave away when you're up 4-0 when there's a spot starter on the mound and Daniel Lynch and your bullpen's going to have to go probably 4, maybe 5 innings, depending on what that guy does against a good Twins team?
Yes.
I don't know. I came away from that game obviously annoyed and frustrated and questions about the bullpen moving forward. The offense and this team doing what they've done as of late, which is starting to get very moral victory-ish, all right? A couple of games, it's like, you know what? They continue to fight back. They're pesky. These guys are pests. They're never out of the game. Duran does not ever want to see the Royals again because they make it close. They see him for whatever reason. They will get right there on the line and then not go over it. They did last year with the Bobby Witt Grand Slam, but they'll get right there, but just not enough by a run given up here or a pitch there to the opposing team when you're on defense and in the field, and it's just so close to making a comeback. And we've seen that a number of times this week specifically, that now we're past that point of whether we know they continue to fight back. But now let's, win some games. They are sitting 2-5 on the season against the Minnesota Twins, and on Monday was the start of an incredibly important stretch for this Royals ball club, with 23 of the next 90 games being against the Twins and the Guardians. But also you're going to mix in the Padres and the Yankees and a number of other really good teams along the way. And they have started off, 1-3 in that stretch.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I said it when Chris Stratton came in. Again, yes, I think because it's very moral victory. You can say all you want. Oh, it's a spot start. You had a 4-run lead.
Yeah.
You needed 4 innings from your bullpen. And I get that means you're not going to get Schreiber and MacArthur and just... But by the way, MacArthur didn't pitch this game, and Schreiber
MacArthur
went
has barely
third.
pitched this month.
Maybe just say, hey, I know we might be up 4. You can still use them. You push everyone up an inning.
I want to talk about that.
But because Chris Stratton, okay, since I've already said this, I'm sure everyone knows where I'm going. He has pitched the most innings out of the bullpen of any bullpen arm.
And he's got like a 2 ERA, right?
Yes, it's exactly 6.
Oh, okay.
Exactly 6.
I thought it was
now,
2.
I think Quatraro's done a great job for the most part this year. I think he's done a really nice job.
I agree.
This is the one spot that I don't understand. Why does he keep turning to Chris Stratton, who's perpetually pitched almost every single day the past week, it feels like? He's not been good. Why not turn to Nick Anderson or Zerpa? Or if you wanted to go to Sam Long anyways, go Sam Long in the 6th. I didn't understand the bullpen management, particularly in regards to Chris Stratton. I get his 2020, but I said right when Chris Stratton came in, I go, why does he keep turning to Stratton?
And if I bring in Stratton, I probably have somebody getting ready just in case, because I may need him. I'm probably going to need him in the 7th inning. I know he's thrown Stratton more than an inning a number of times, an inning and a third, 2 innings at times. He did have that 2-inning save a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He's also had some struggles, but I think Quatraro's done a really good job at managing this team, the tactical parts of managing this team. I think he's good at that. The frustration comes in because the bullpen blew a game, and we've seen that happen before this season, especially early in the year, and he's turning to guys that, quite frankly, aren't getting it done, and you sort of deal with the pieces you have and try to work around it. When he brought in Stratton, I thought maybe, okay, have somebody ready to go. But as he started to get guys on and walk and not have it, at that point, man, I got to win this game. I got to find a way to win this game, and I don't care if I got to go to MacArthur in the 6th inning. I need to get out of this.
There were 3 outings this year, and they're the 3 of the worst outings, I think, of any Royals bullpen pitcher. Was Stratton in New York when he had that 4-walk or 3-walk performance, then the Detroit game when Matt Vierling went yard off of him, and then it was honestly yesterday. And the tough part about Chris Stratton is he's not, in his career, at least not last year, he hasn't been that hit or miss. He threw like 80-plus innings last year. His ERA was under 4. Like, that's what they thought Chris Stratton was going to be. And for the 2-inning workload, he threw 80-plus innings last year. So he is capable of doing that. And yesterday, it kind of felt like they were going to steal an inning and then throw Schreiber in the 7th or Serpa in the 7th, or use Schreiber for 2 and MacArthur for 2, or Schreiber for 1 and MacArthur for 2, because MacArthur was fresh. He hadn't really thrown.
Very fresh.
He didn't throw in the series, so
Still fresh.
He's in the last 14 games, MacArthur has 4 innings pitched.
Yeah.
Last 14 games. And I know a number of them that they won by a wide margin. Mm-hmm. But when these close games are in the 6th to the 7th, waiting till the 9th, you may not get there. And they haven't got there a number of times, because that's why he's thrown 4 innings in the last 14 games.
It just feels like this bullpen, as good as the team has been, I mean, they're still 11 games over 500, and, if you just pulled up the ERA numbers of the bullpen, the Royals are on the bottom side, but not glaringly awful.
Yeah.
Where they're glaringly awful is they don't strike anybody out. Mm-hmm. And you look at Minnesota's bullpen in this series, when they went to Alcala, when they went to Griffin Jacks, when they even went to Duran, even though he struggled. They can generate the swing and miss, where this bullpen can't. So you've now eliminated the ability to strike somebody out, and it's, well, I hope they just put it in play at somebody, or I hope I can generate the soft contact. But you go to Stratton. If you can't throw strikes, it doesn't really matter. And, the game was lost on the Carlos Correa 3-run triple it was.
Yeah.
But I go back a couple of plays earlier in that inning, Bobby Witt Jr. should have had a pocket ball. He throws it, and then Kepler's bloop turns into a run and not first and second one out. Then he walks Margot to get to Carlos Correa. It wasn't tactical, but you can't do that. I'd rather you just feed a ball down the middle to Margot than fall behind Carlos Correa, and then that, of course, happened. But, again, that all comes back to the fact they can't strike anybody out. Not Serpa, not Schreiber, not MacArthur. Those are your three most reliable guys, and then you get down the line. If you can't strike anybody out, these outings are going to happen because if they can get ahead in the count, they know you're not going to throw something that's unhittable.
The issue that I think you run into and part of the striking guys out, so who Matt Quatraro chooses in the bullpen and when he chooses to use those guys. Schreiber has 10 consecutive outings without a clean inning. Nick Anderson has 8 straight outings without a clean inning. I mean, anybody he brings in, they're putting a guy on, whether that be a hit or a walk. And they're not getting out of it by striking guys out. So they're playing with more fire than maybe Duran, who can throw 98-mile-an-hour splitter, throw it in there 100, 101, get some strikeouts even if there are a couple of men on base. Get some contact that, maybe not weak contact, but a pop-up or whatever it might be. And MacArthur, as we talked about, has thrown 4 innings in the last 14 games. Those 4 innings, no earned runs. He hasn't walked a guy in his last 28 batters faced, MacArthur. So it may not be the strikeout guy, but he's not putting guys on. He's throwing strikes. And I think the last walk he had was the blown save against Milwaukee. Do people remember the Milwaukee series? It was that long ago. Yeah. Now, again, he hasn't pitched very much either, but he's not walking guys when he's in the game where some of these other guys are. Zerpa's been somebody that's been more reliable, certainly as of late. And Sam Long, I don't know what they have in Sam Long, but I know that bullpen arms are incredibly volatile, and this guy has been an every other year guy. 40 innings, 5 ERA. 2 years ago, 42 innings, 3 ERA. Last year, 40 innings, 5 ERA. This year, so far, no earned runs.
It's like the Giants. It's like the 12, 14, 16. They're good in odd years.
Right, but we see that a lot with bullpen guys. Sometimes a bullpen guy just is amazing, and the next year he sucks. And it's like, oh, what happened? Well, it's just one of those things that sometimes bullpen guys, arms out of the bullpen are. So I don't know what they have in Sam Long, but I mean, he had almost a 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio in AAA with Omaha. And does that mean he's going to be that guy in the big leagues? I don't know. He's had some control issues throughout his career, which is why some of that ERA is elevated. But I think this is the situation we're talking about, Jack, is that Schreiber, Anderson, Zerpa, they were hoping Carlos Hernandez would be a guy that would give them a different profile in the bullpen of somebody that has some stuff and throws really hard. That at this point, I'm like, you know what? Let's see what the Sam Long has. I know he had a 5+ ERA last year, but the year before that it was a 3. And he was, got a couple of saves, finishing games for Omaha in AAA, and 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio there. Let's see what you have in him, because right now the guys he's turning to are not making it easy on themselves and having just a relaxing inning where you watch the bullpen guy come in and go 3 up, 3 down. Awesome. Hell yeah. No, it's been, here's a walk, here's a hit. Let's work around that. Okay, good play in the on defense, and you got out of that. It just feels like there's a lot of getting out of it when the bullpen's pitching.
Yeah, it's all, you said, playing with fire. I think that's the perfect way to sum it up with this Royals bullpen. And I think you can really figure out how good a manager is when they have to manage a bullpen that's not really that good. Because it's, for instance, I think Rocco Baldelli's been a very good manager. He gets to go to Griffin Jackson, Johan Duran at the end of the game. And he's thrown Duran in 5 of the last 7 games. It's just, and that may hurt them later on, because when somebody throws that hard and they're just constantly going out there, that could lead to possible injuries. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. But, when you have HDH in the bullpen, it's easy. You have a lead after the 6th inning, boom, boom, boom. Now you got to get a little bit more tactical in the 6th inning, how to get there. But when they had, Ryan Madsen, they were able to piece it together more. With this bullpen, it is all about matchups. And I thought yesterday, leaving Stratton in so long and then, of course, getting Schreiber up, they had Sam Long up, but also Baldelli kept going to the bench over and over again. And then it comes down to, do you risk bringing in Sam Long for them to go to the bench and bring in somebody who's a right-handed hitter, and do you trust Sam Long in that spot? So
somebody you don't know very well.
He's thrown the 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah.
And if you're at that point in the year where it's high leverage against a division rival and you're going to a guy you just called up from Omaha, you're spread pretty thin. Mm-hmm. And that's why I thought yesterday, when Schreiber got warmed up, the question is, well, if you're going to warm up Schreiber in the 6th, who then came in to pitch in the 6th, why not go to Schreiber then? Well, then the question becomes, who's the 7th inning guy? Who's the 8th? Schreiber can't go 3 innings. You'd have to go to Stratton at some point. You'd have to go to Serpa at some point, and then maybe MacArthur for 2. But if that bites you in the ass, then people are going to go, why are you throwing a closer for 6 innings?
I'd rather them bring in MacArthur in the 8th and 9th when he hasn't pitched, very much, incredibly fresh. Some would even say, rusty, maybe at that. But that might have been the issue, is like, well, we get him in the 8th to pitch 2 innings. Well, we haven't thrown him out there very often. Okay, we'll get him out there for an inning then. If the Royals have an 8-2 lead against the Padres in the 8th or 9th, put MacArthur in there for an inning. Get some work in. I know it's not the, high leverage situations, and sometimes when closers come in that situation, they give up a couple of runs, and for whatever reason, the way the mind works, Monty talks about that, and just as a closer in a non-high leverage situation, something goes on, something clicks a different way, the chemicals aren't reacting the same way, and all of a sudden it's like, man, he didn't look sharp. Well, in the one-run game, he goes out there and he's throwing BBs up there, and so just like try to get him some work. But I would have loved if it was Stratton starts to struggle and you've got a 1-run lead. Like at that point, like we need to leave this series split. Yes. We took a 4-0 lead, and we can even have a winning road trip with how we've played if we win this game, heading back home for 3 and then going back on the road. But find a way to win this game no matter what. So if I got to throw Stratton here, all right, but he's got a short leash because he's been 50-50. He's been a coin flip. And when he's been out there and he's been good, he's been good. But then, like yesterday, trouble finding the strike zone, putting guys on. At that point, it's like, all right, he didn't have it. So I think we're at the point in the season where the way Stratton is pitching right now, the way Nick Anderson is pitching right now, is when you bring him in, you might have a pretty decent idea early on of what you may get from him, and he may have it, he may not, and then we got to already make these plans for the next couple of batters. He's got to be in there for 3, but then after that 3rd batter, who are we bringing in? Because it looks like he doesn't really have it outing, and that's what I felt last night or yesterday afternoon when he came in, and early on I'm like, oh no. This might be the bad Stratton, but he's got to face 3. Yeah. What do you do after 3? And he kept him in for the whole thing, and 4 runs later, and the Royals lose.
That's a very good point. Just you can tell early with Stratton whether he has it or not.
As of late, you've been able to do that.
His walk percentage is brutal. 3rd percentile in all of Major League Baseball. 3rd percentile is not good. That's the bad side. 15.4%. He's walking 15.4% of batters. Not ideal.
No.
The one thing he does well is he gets a lot of soft contact. Actually, his average exit velos in the 100th percentile. He gets the weakest contact on average in all of Major League Baseball. The issue is he doesn't strike anyone out, and he gets a lot of walks. So it's almost like, okay, death by 1,000 paper cuts is typically the motto with Chris Stratton. I'm going to walk some guys, give him a whole bunch of bloops. Next thing you know, 2 runs are in. It's not consistent. It's frustrating to watch. You can tell right away, as we're mentioning. I don't know where Q goes from here because, again, I understand you're not throwing Schreiber 3 innings. MacArthur, you want to go 2-2. Yes, I think MacArthur in this particular one, but is that a winning strategy for the entire season? Probably not. They need bullpen help. That's the moral of the story. Is we're talking Sam Long as the savior almost right now.
He's just not like, hey, what do you have?
It's like Chris
See
Stratton.
what you got.
You got to do with Chris Stratton what you did with Will Smith earlier. Low leverage, but how many low leverage guys can you have? Nick Anderson, low leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Stratton, Will Smith. That's 3 low leverage guys. You got to have some guys who can show up in big time moments, and the Royals don't really have that outside of 2 guys that I think we all really trust.
Yeah, last 3 times he's been in higher leverage situations, he's either he's given up the lead run in 2 of the 3. And the only one he did not give up the lead run is because they were down 3-2. So now he didn't give up a run in that outing, went an inning and a third down 3-2 and kept the Royals in the game. They ended up losing that game, but in the game they won against the Rays in the 11th inning, he came in the 6th. It was tied 2-2, and he gave up the lead run. The Royals got the tie, then the lead run, then they got the tie, then the lead run, then the tie, then they won in the 11th, and then, of course, yesterday. So it's 3 straight higher leverage situations, even though they've all been in the 6th inning. They've been closer games in the 6th inning, and 2 of the 3 he's given up the lead run. And so even the 6th inning quote high, which is really medium, is not necessarily coming through for Stratton right now. But that's part of a season, though. I mean, you're going to have a season where guys 14 and 15 just don't come along really ever, and where Ned Yost can just sit back, kick his feet up, hands behind the head, and just sort of watch and like, go ahead and get Luke. Why don't you go ahead and get up? Madsen, you good to go? Kelvin, what do you say? 8th inning. All right, 9th. I don't even have to make. You guys know it. Go. You guys do it. You did do your thing. Do your thing. I'm going to see where my hunting trip is. You guys good? We won? Cool, let's go. Not to minimize Ned Yost's bullpen usage, but a little bit easier there than it is now where you're managing where some guys are struggling and a few guys are struggling really at the same time. And the guy you brought up to be, somebody you feel like has the stuff, I think it's inflated stuff with Carlos Hernandez because it's not translating to stuff that actually is effective and productive. And Q has to figure it out. That's the job. That's the job for him, is figuring it out. The offense scored 6 runs. It was enough to win the game. You just needed your bullpen not to give up 4 runs.
It also just, with this bullpen, it's a streaky bullpen. Because also, remember back in April after their horrific performance, or Will Smith's horrific performance in Baltimore, they had an unbelievable stretch. And that just very well may be who they are until they add pieces. And I firmly believe that if they get through this 5-6 series stretch, which ends with them playing the Dodgers in L.A., and they're still 5 to 10 games over 500, I'd imagine at that point it's going to be
Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott.
I don't care who it is, man. Just show that you're being aggressive to add to the bullpen, because there's 6 games up on the wild card. Mm-hmm. So while they're 3 games back, and we're watching the Guardians because winning the division is a big deal, watching the Guardians, winning every single night, whether the Guardians do or not, is important because they are still firmly in the playoffs. They are 3 games up on the Twins for the last wild card spot, and the Twins are 3 games up on the Tigers. So they have a 6-game lead in the playoffs right now with the biggest stretch of baseball in tough teams that they'll be facing. And to me, it's like, do you wait, as you said, these next 4 or 5 series to see where you're at and then get aggressive? Or do you look at it and go, no, this is an opportunity to where we're playing really good teams, and if we can hold our own, then we're in an even better position. Let's get aggressive right now. Why wait till July when we can get an arm in here in early to mid-June and start to get more aggressive? I mean, you don't have to make the trade in July. When did they make the trade for Reagans? Was that in June? Was that July? Might have been later with Chapman. But J.J. Piccolo has made trades earlier than the trade deadline, more so than Dayton was really like the week of the trade deadline is when Dayton's going to do his work. I think last year JJ showed that he was more willing to move earlier, move some pieces. Does that mean he'll be more aggressive in acquiring pieces earlier before the trade deadline? I have no idea.
And I will just say very quickly for everyone wondering when the trade deadline is in Major League Baseball, it's July 30th. July 30th is the trade deadline. So we are just now under 2 months away. 2 months away.
Yeah, a couple months away, figuring out what they have.
They need power. They need power in the bullpen, and Carlos Hernandez is going to give you that. I actually think the setback that McMillan had in spring training is probably the biggest blow to this bullpen, because he was your swing and miss guy. Yeah. He not only had the velocity, he had the wipeout pitches, and he's struggling in Omaha. And who knows if they're going to give him a chance at some point. They've got guys down in Omaha, Will Klein and Walter Pennington, but again, that's making the jump from AAA to the bigs, and they're not going to make that jump and they go, 8th inning's yours. They'll probably be in low leverage spots when they first get called up.
We'll see what happens. They got the Padres for 3 tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, an off day before they head back out on the road for a road trip. And they've been playing much better baseball at home. They are a really good team at home. So can they make some hay this weekend against the Padres? Dylan Cease on the mound, who is a strikeout machine and has a 3.29 ERA. But that 3.29 ERA is inflated in the last 3 starts from his 1 ERA, because 18 innings and 14 earned runs the last 3 starts for Dylan Cease. So right now, the way he's pitching, keep him struggling and get after him early tonight for the Royals, and have Dylan Cease maybe thinking, here we go again. Why can't I get back into the 6 innings, 1 earned run, 6 innings, no earned runs, instead of the 4 innings 4, 5 innings 3, 6 innings 4, and not have those shutdown games. We'll see what happens tonight. Michael Wacha on the mound. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Jack Johnson. Bobby Witt came through. 9th inning. Off Duran. So there you go.
Yeah. Was there more to that, Jason? Or?
No, I'm just saying he came through.
Everybody doubted him in spots like that. Overrated at times, I was told, in spots with 2 outs, representing the go-ahead run. In every situation he'd been in, he had always choked it away.
And that one also was, I don't think he was planning. I don't think he was going to swing at the first pitch no matter where it was. You could have had me on the mound doing the underhand, like, when they're warming up and telling you what they're okay, here comes a curve, change up, here comes my fastball. I could have done that and showed him what I was throwing, and he might have just sat there and taken it just in case. So the first one he wasn't going to swing at. And I don't know that he was going to necessarily swing at the second one until that thing hung a little bit, and then, he did what Bobby Witt does and put the barrel on the bat, reacted, and boom, I'm putting it into play. I'm not going to just sit here and take 3 pitches for the sake of taking 3 pitches. There was not a doubt in my mind he was taking the first pitch, no matter where it was. But he
Mike
came.
Trout method.
Yeah, that's right. But he came through last night. Let's hear from Jimmy Rollins. This is, I can't remember where the podcast is from. I apologize. I'll look it up. But Jimmy Rollins was on a podcast. It was with MLB, and they were going through Jimmy's swing or take or something like that. You'll hear the game that they were playing. And the question was, Bobby Witt, best shortstop in baseball?
Next one we got Bobby Witt Jr. is the best shortstop in the game. Swing or take on that one?
Ooh, I'm going to say swing. I like that call. The man is out there balling. He's on everything you want as an offensive player and as a great defensive player. He has speed. He has leadership quality. And he's, I can't say the only reason, but he's a huge reason why the Kansas City Royals are doing so good this year. And people around me can say I'm biased towards shortstops. I think it's one of the most important positions on the field outside of the top 2, which is pitching and catching. They control the game. But after that, I feel everything else falls on us. And he takes that responsibility and his talents out there on the field every day, and he hasn't let us down. So it's a big swing.
Best shortstop in baseball, Jimmy Rollins. And that's a guy who's an all-star. That's a guy who was
MVP,
pretty damn good in his day, and recognizing what Bobby Witt Jr. is doing. But yeah, he's balling. He's doing his thing and playing the best shortstop in all of baseball in an MVP type season. As we know, still the second betting odds for the MVP. And that was the unfortunate part about the 3-run double. If they score 1 run or 2 runs there instead of getting 4 runs in that inning, and that hit maybe gives them a 6-5 lead, as opposed to that hit, putting them within 1 run, 7-6, and having Witt over at first and hoping that Vinny would come through.
Do they pitch to him, though, in that spot? Or they just go back to the same, we pitched to him again?
They pitched to him the day before, so I think they would. I think they would. I really didn't think they were going to pitch to him the day before. I thought they were going to walk him. And they did not. And, they threw something low and away, hoping that he would do exactly what he did. But, they still pitched to him. And it was also a strike. Like, it wasn't like it was down in the dirt and he rolled over on it. So it's like, well, we're going to pitch around him. We're not going to give him anything to hit. No, we're going to throw one low and away. And if he hits it, hopefully he swings over the top. But if he hits it and barrels this one with Duran, a 98-mile-an-hour split finger, if he barrels that and takes it the other way, well, then damn it, tip the cap. But I couldn't believe that they pitched to him in that situation. You're up by 3.
I do think
you don't want to put the tying run on first with Bobby Witt's speed, and then a gap ties the game, so you got to pitch to him in that situation.
I do think if you're a closer, though, you pitch to everyone. You don't really play that game.
Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds is. We're not using the outlier.
Up by 1. Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds is
2 outs. Barry Bonds at the plate, up by 1.
Well, you probably still pitch because then if you walk him, and then you can lose the game. I mean, I get what you're saying, but he's the exception to the rule. Like, there's always going to be the exception. I know. If you're a closer, you're in that role because you think you can get anyone out. That's the whole mindset. If you do that, then you're basically your manager's telling you they don't believe in you. They don't think you can get out this guy. They think that they are going to get the best of you. I think if you're a closer, especially someone like Duran who's been so freaking good, you don't worry about that. You just say, I'm going to get you out. I think that's how the Twins would handle that. That's how they somewhat did handle this, and Bobby got him this time.
I mean, he's got him 2 of the last 3 times, so he didn't.
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4?
No, 2 out of 3 because
2 out of 3 because
was
the Grand Slam, and then
yeah.
last night, and then the night before was when Bobby did not come through. But the other one was in Tampa.
Yeah.
For Bobby doing that. But 2 out of 3, Bobby's got him in the ninth inning to score a couple of runs, Grand Slam, and then 2 runs, last night. Unfortunately, the night before was, or yesterday afternoon, but the night before was, a hit ties the game or gives you the lead, as opposed to last night's hit pulls you within 1, but it still gave you a chance. I mean, he could have rolled over that one at 7-4. And people would be less frustrated in that one because it didn't have the tying run on third at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's weird. I wonder what the odds would be in a weak stretch that you come up 3 times representing the tying or go-ahead run. But also, I mean, how many players do come through in a moment like that? And I don't think any Royals player would want anybody else up there at that point. Even Salvador Perez, who has, a 486 average with runners in scoring position. I still take – if Bobby Witt Jr. struck out yesterday, he was 0 for 3, I still don't think I'd want any other player up there in that specific spot against that specific pitcher.
Well, he's had 3 of them this week. He went 1 for 3, so he's batting .333 in high-leverage situations in the ninth and has 2 RBIs.
I think Salvi is, I believe this is up to date per CBS Sports, batting .453 with runners in scoring position.
Is that all? I thought he was doing well this year.
.405 with runners on base. Base is empty, only .261.
Ugh.
And then base is loaded, he's batting .500.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Anything to grasp at straws with MJ?
I will say that I think yesterday those were the 3 best at-bats he's had all season.
It's really good. I know there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek with MJ Melendez anytime he has one good game, but those at-bats were legit.
They were good, and I also thought after he lined out to Santana. I mean, by the way, if nobody's seen MJ Melendez up close, he's a big dude, but he's also never angry. I would have thought that'd be a bat-smashing moment. To have a 12-pitch at bat and then line out to a 38-year-old, 5'10", 230-pound first baseman.
I think he's had a lot of bat-smashing moments in this season so far.
It has to be. But I think at least it just makes you breathe a little bit easier. He's much better at home than he is on the road. He had 3 really good at-bats, a line out, a 400-and-some-foot home run to the plaza in right field, and then he walked. When you see MJ Melendez walking, that's when you know a stretch is coming. Now, he's got to do it again tonight. I hope they put him back in the lineup because the last thing you want to do after a game like that is just put him on the bench against a right-handed pitcher.
If he's not in the lineup tonight, I mean.
That shows you where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I think Quattrero will have him in the lineup tonight. He does that. Let's hear from Matt Quattrero, in fact, because he was asked about MJ Melendez and his at-bats and if there's something to take away and seeing something from what he did in that game, specifically that one moment for those 9 innings. Is there anything? There's a gleam, man. There's a gleam. Go get that gleam, MJ. Here's Matt Quattrero talking about the loss and what took place in that game.
A loss is a loss. I mean, it wasn't the 9th inning that's frustrating. It's the fact that we lost the game.
What did you see just kind of from Daniel Lynch on the mound as he made this last start?
Yeah, he threw the ball well. I mean, he forced contact, got him early swinging. Pitch count was really low. They got to him with the home run ball, but other than that, I mean, he threw the ball really well. Even the second home run from Jeffers was a pitch up out of the zone. He got on top of it. So all in all, I thought he threw the ball really well.
Did you consider bringing him out there for the 6th inning?
No.
Control problems with the bullpen? Has that been an issue this year, or throwing strikes?
No, not usually. Off and on a little bit, but that Stratton pitches to the corners, and today just missed a little bit, and the walks hurt us a little bit that inning.
Then you got Bobby up in a big spot again the 9th inning. This time, comes through with the base hit. That's like you said Monday. That's the guy you want up in that situation, and you take it every time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think back earlier in the game, he's a foot or 2 away from a homer for a double. That's a run on the board. It's a game that you can go back and think about all the inches here or feet here, whatever. I mean, he's up in a big spot for us. We love it. He gets a big base hit there. We got Vinny up. We really like our chances there, too.
Yes. One good sign from today, or from the series takeaways, it seems like some of the bats that have been struggling are starting to come back to life now. MJ with three really good at-bats today, 4 actually, the walk.
Yeah, he swung the bat well. I know he's working hard. I mean, he certainly hasn't performed to his standards the way that he wants to, and he's been frustrated, but he's putting the work in. Zuni's working, those guys are working their butt off with him, and so we expect that he'll bounce back.
What kind of led to allowing Stratton to face Correa there in Essex?
Yeah, I mean, we have to get outs. I mean, we have confidence in Stratton. When he's in the zone, he gets outs.
And last one, going at the end of this long stretch you guys had on the road, going back home, how do you just kind of evaluate this road trip for you?
Yeah, we played well. I mean, we need to tighten up a little bit, but overall, we're in really competitive games with two really good teams.
So hopefully, I mean, we'll see what. You needed outs. I know when Jalen asked about going to keeping Stratton in and not going to Stryber. Like,
well, good question. Yeah,
needed outs. Typically, you need 27 of them for the most part, unless you're on the road and then you don't need 27. Like last night, they did not need 27; they only needed 24. But still, you need the outs, but you also need somebody to get those outs. And it didn't look like Stratton was doing that. It's funny, MJ Melendez with the at bats that he had. So the line drive, the walk, the home run coming on the first pitch, just ambushing. I'm working good at bats. Are you going to get me over? No, I'm still willing to swing at the first pitch, even though I've been working the count. But before those at bats, like he had gotten on base twice since May 20th. It's June tomorrow. So it really feels like was it the guy named Mickey in Little Big League? Was it the ball player that was the veteran? So you got Little Big League where the kid is the manager of the Minnesota Twins. And they're talking about whether or not they're going to DFA and release this player. And he's like, no, like he was his favorite player. And there was like a seeing eye single to the right side. And he was like, see? And the bench coach looked at him and said, don't you think there's a problem when that's what you're getting excited about? And then they decided to cut him. I don't remember the name, but I remember that a lot for whatever reason. That was a good lesson for, a baseball movie that is pretty realistic. A 12-year-old managing a baseball team. Why not? He knew about baseball. He would pinch hit, and he could hit and run. He would call steals and stuff, and he knew baseball strategy.
Probably didn't know what a sweeper was, though.
No, he didn't. But he knew how to manage a clubhouse. That's for damn sure. And he knew that the horse was named Friday. He got that right as well. But there's a little bit of that with MJ, even though there was the home run and the walk. But there's a little bit of like that. It's like, isn't that sort of an issue when he, goes 1 for 3 with a walk in a game, and it's just, those 2 times getting on base match the amount of times he's been on base in the last, 12 days? Doesn't it feel like you're searching for anything?
I feel like we can't overstate enough. I think the reason why we treat him like that is because we know how important he is to the lineup. Going into the year, we highlighted certain players that had to be good for this offense to be good. It really didn't matter if Hunter Renfroe was great or really bad. Yeah. I mean, didn't expect to be this bad. But like MJ Melendez couldn't afford to be that guy that hit 170 and had his first RBI on the road yesterday. We hope for these games to turn into something because, quite honestly, it has to. That's when we get in these debates about demotion and going to Omaha. I don't think the Royals view him as just get him out of there and put Drew Waters in there. I think if they demote him, it wouldn't be for long. It would have to be a quick 1-2 week turnaround, get confidence back. But that's only if his confidence is low. And the broadcast was saying, or Ryan Lefebvre was saying in Tampa, MJ's fine. He's still in good spirits. He's trying to stay confident, and maybe that's just trying to put a mask on it. Mm-hmm. But there's no reason to demote him unless you feel like it's purely confidence. They can toy with his swing at the big league level and try to learn how to hit off that. I mean, really, at this point for a 3-year big leaguer, what is going down and tearing up AAA pitching going to do if it's all about tinkering with stuff? If it's confidence, then yeah, that makes sense. If he's got no confidence right now, then yeah, go hit 450 down in Omaha for a few weeks. But if it's not, if it's trying to work with the swing, why not work with the coaches that have been working with him all season long and into the offseason as well?
The only thing I would say that would potentially help is it would give him more at-bats. Because right now he's a part-time player up here. He's obviously not facing lefties. He gets pulled. Maybe he gets sent down. They say, okay, now you're facing lefties. Let's see how you handle left-handed pitching. Obviously, there's a little room up here. It's not like Nelson Velasquez or Hunter Renfroe's really tearing it up. but still, he's more of a part-time player. That's the only thing I could make the argument for is he would get everyday at-bats, especially against lefties.
He's 700 plate appearances and about 600 at-bats, almost 200 games away from when Moustakas broke out and started becoming Moustakas. So it was 514 games that Moustakas had played in the big leagues before 2015 when he finally, when he went from a 670 OPS to then the next 5 years OPSing at 800 or better. But that was 500
of what they were doing of Moose prior, if they were similar to what.
I'll give you. So MJ right now in his career is OPSing at 696. Moustakas before the 2015 season OPSed at 668. OPS plus Moustakas was 82. MJ's 92. MJ's getting on base 15 points higher than Moustakas was throughout his first 514 games. Now, maybe it was just confidence for Moustakas because that 2014 postseason and home runs and playing well, that felt like it was, hey, you're a damn fine player, dude. You should believe it.
Yeah.
And then for the next 5 years, he was an 800-plus OPS guy.
Well, think, too, it was easier for the Royals to demote Moustakas even though he never went to Omaha. It was easier in the demote because Danny Valencia was hitting at the big league level. There's nobody right now at the big league level you can say, okay, demote MJ and somebody's going to start in left field. It is different than Drew Waters or C.J. Alexander or Nate Eaton hitting in Omaha than doing the same up at the big league level. The Royals could demote Moose, who was hitting 147 back in 2014, because Danny Valencia was doing his job. And then Valencia got hurt the day that Moose got demoted, and he just turned his car back around. So there's no easy solution right now, and I think the Royals would rather him figure it out here than also, what if he goes down to Omaha and struggles? Now you've lost him for the year. Now you can't count on him to come back, and then what if Drew Waters or Eaton or Alexander isn't the answer in left field? Do you have to go the trade route at that point? That's when it gets a little bit difficult.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and it was Jerry. Jerry Johnson was the character in Little Big League that he did not want to trade or he didn't want to release. And he definitely didn't want to release him because he wouldn't even trade him his baseball card back when he was a couple of years ago. So, and Jerry Jerry's right. He's like, so what am I supposed to tell my wife? That it's all good that I just got cut because the kid didn't want to trade my baseball card? But he told him, well, you're not hitting, so.
This is professional baseball.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Jerry, start hitting. MJ, start hitting. Or we'll trade your baseball card and we might have to, let you go down to AAA. Where's on next? What we all heard from Dave Tobe as to how the kickoff is going to be different, who they're going to be using for the return man, who's going to be kicking off, the strategies behind that. So we'll do that with Matt Derrick and then Daniel Harms coming up at noon.
Might be you, Jason. You might be the one kicking off.
I'll take the paycheck. Hell yeah. My Sundays are open. It's free. Totally free on Sundays.
You think you're good to lay the wood on someone coming at you?
Jack, appreciate you joining us, man.
Always, man.
Absolutely.
Always.
Safe travels to Wichita. Talk to you on Monday. We'll take a timeout. Matt Derrick coming up next. Matt Derrick joining us. Matt, what's up, brother? How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay, Jason. How are you this morning?
I'm doing just fine, man. I am doing just fine. I appreciate you joining us. We'll see you here in just a little bit, but let's start off with something generic, and then we'll start to hone in and focus a little bit more on some specifics. But it's been now 2 practices that you've gone to and watched the OTAs, and we know that there isn't a whole lot to glean from the, as Tom Melvin put it, sort of the fake football, in a lack of a better term. But, you know, what did you see in the second practice out there that you guys were able to watch in the OTAs?
Yeah, I mean, you would get, like, at least with us getting to see one practice a week, you can feel a little bit of progression. I mean, you can certainly see guys who look like they're taking a leap from one week to the next. You know, you're not seeing maybe the micro steps that players are taking, and you get a small sample size. I mean, we might see some guys who are having a bad day one day, and maybe the 4 days that we weren't there, the first 2 weeks, they had nothing but great days. But I was asked this by somebody else, and I think it's worth bearing in. I mean, you know, it's like, well, who's looked bad? Well, I mean, these practices aren't designed for anybody to look bad. I mean, especially when you're not hitting anybody and you're in pads. I mean, you know, you should be executing. You should be making the right plays. And it's just, you know, this is more about, you know, for the coaches to be able to maybe tell who's just maybe falling behind a little bit, or as we heard quite a few times yesterday, who's swimming right now.
Yeah.
Because that's probably the rookies. But, you know, you can definitely see progressions. I mean, a guy like Nico Remigio, I mean, he was probably the guy that turned the most heads yesterday because he made a lot of plays. He caught a lot of passes, looked even better than he looked last week, which was pretty good. He was incredibly active. I think Mahomes absolutely, to me, looks like in mid-season form. He did a Mahomesian thing yesterday, backpedaling, and as he was backpedaling backwards, flings the ball 50-odd plus yards downfield with like a 6.5 hang time. I mean, just it's Mahomes.
Was
it
caught?
It was not caught. Sky could not quite catch up with it. So maybe put that a little check box on the negative side for Sky. They couldn't quite get there, but it was a busted play. It was a blitz that was coming up, and Mahomes had to kind of get rid of it quickly. And boy, did he get rid of it! I'm trying to think. There's other guys too. I mean, you know, and you've seen some of the rookies like Steve Spags was talking about Jaden Hicks yesterday. That he's looked really good. I mean, does he look like he's a rookie at times? Sure, but man, I can't wait to the pads come on to see how that guy plays, because I think he's just going to be an absolute hitter once they're allowed to start being a little bit more physical.
So, Nico Remigio, that's an interesting one, because he was a guy that last year during training camp and preseason games was at least discussed as somebody that may make the squad, or, you know, they've got all these different receivers. How could they possibly cut any of them? I mean, they're just, speaking of swimming, they were just swimming in receivers last year at this time. But Nico Remigio, you mentioned he turned some heads with the passes that he caught, and being out there and watching, catching those passes. Was it that, you know, he just had more of an opportunity this go around, or was it that, you know, he created his opportunity this go around, and that's why he was turning heads, is because, you know, the ball could have gone anywhere, but he was the one that got open and the ball came to him? Or, you know, they ran more plays maybe specifically at that particular time for the position he was playing, and the opportunities were more there this go around, and he just simply took advantage of those opportunities afforded?
You know, it's a little bit of both. I mean, right now, you know, yesterday, for instance, Hollywood Brown wasn't practicing, Xavier Worthy, Kadarius Toney's not practicing. So, hey, a guy like Nico Remigio all of a sudden gets to move up 3 spots at the depth chart. And right now, you know, hey, instead of maybe splitting reps between the 2s and the 3s, now he's splitting reps between the 1s and the 2s. And, you know, he had, I think Mahomes' first 10 passes, I think I had 3 of them going to Remigio. He made the catch all 3 times. So it's a little bit of both. I mean, is he getting more opportunities right now because some guys aren't there? Yes. Is he getting some of those opportunities because he's playing well? Yes. Is he making the most of those opportunities? I mean, that's a triple check. Yes. I mean, it's not 4 exclamation points, Jason, but it is 3 check marks.
I like that. Yes, that's exactly right. Nice callback to a couple of days ago with Josh Kaiser, who had the 4 exclamation points on the yes. But I like the check marks that are there, and that matters, right? I mean, taking advantage of an opportunity matters. I mean, it's a great point on, well, he was put in that position because Hollywood, Xavier, and Kadarius Toney weren't practicing. Okay, well, let's take it with a grain of salt as to what Nico Remigio was doing. Right, but he was given the opportunity, and he went out there and caught the passes. He could have, had times where he didn't get open or dropped the pass or didn't track it well, which is something that Mahomes has talked about, what he loves about Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, and sort of the difference of maybe the wide receivers this go around this year that, take advantage of those opportunities that are afforded to you that you have. And if you don't do that, well, then they just simply move on. So how do you know if he's going to be good or not? Well, hey, you got a chance. Go show that you're going to be good, and at least he's doing that. I don't know if it means he's going to make the squad, but I love that he's at least pushing the guys in front of him, whether that be Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney or whoever.
Yeah, and let's be realistic. I mean, that's my question about Remigio, because we haven't seen him since he dislocated his shoulder last year during training camp. So, we really didn't know what to expect of him. But, so to me, I have 3 kind of tiers of receivers. There's the group at the top, there's 4 receivers there, like Hollywood, Worthy, Rice, Justin Watson. They're 90% to make the team. They're probably going to be on the team this year. There's a second group that is your Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Justin Ross, as in that kind of group. I mean, they're probably competing for a couple of spots. And the question was, Remigio, is he at the top of that third tier, or is he at the, maybe bottom of the second tier? I think he firmly put himself in that second tier for me.
Interesting. No, that's a really good point. Where would be, Amir Smith-Marset, from a year ago, if he's that second or third, tier guy. Did we lose Matt? Hold on. It sounded like he just hung up on us. Did Dylan? Is Matt? Can we get Matt back on the?
Let me try and get him back. Here.
Okay, get him back. Okay.
Let's see. Checking that.
Matt, you there? We got you.
I think I'm here now. I think I'm back.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow. And sounds like the audio quality's probably improved.
Whoa. I don't know what you did, Dylan, with that connection with the phone, but it is crisp and clean. This is 2024 phone connection, not back in the day when you had to ask, can you hear me now, over and over again. This is as crisp and clean as it gets. This is brilliant.
I call this pulling a Garrick Dieter. So
it's almost a hologram, too, quite frankly. It feels like I could see him now.
All I did was untangle the wire, so it actually worked this time.
Did you unplug it and plug it back in, Dylan? Did you do that? You tried that? Okay. Did you replace the batteries?
Yes.
Have you tried that?
I think all 3 of those things together worked.
I can feel him.
Did you?
I'm real.
Did you turn it on? All right, let's move on.
Sterling just felt my generous proportions.
Matt.
What are you doing, Matt?
Matt.
What are you doing? Let me ask you this, Matt. To move on from that, he's presented by Cap One Lending. If they want to claim him or not, ChiefsDigest.com and 41 is the mic. But it seems like when the defensive coaches talk, the offense is all about the offense has the advantage. When the offensive coaches talk, it's like, well, yeah, the defense has the advantage because they know we're passing every single time. So who has the advantage? Is it the offense or the defense in this passing camp?
I mean, I think even Andy Reid's going to tell you the offense has the advantage.
So defense knows we're passing, so they've got an advantage.
Yeah, that was the only thing that Matt Nagy could really say. That's well, hey, they know we're going to throw the football. I mean, they know we're not running the ball, so it's defense has an advantage. They know it. Yeah. Of course, Spags is like, there's a guy wearing a yellow jersey.
We can't touch.
We can't touch that guy. We can't tackle anybody. We can't push anybody. We can't pull.
That's great. Yeah, the offense definitely has the advantage.
Oh yeah.
But I love just the mindset from the defense of, well, yeah, and then the mindset from the offense of, well, we aren't allowed to run the ball, so we're going to pass it. Of course, you've got an advantage there with this,
And there were some great moments yesterday that, unfortunately, because of both the Chiefs reporting guidelines and the FCC regulations, I can't share what some of the comments were said on the field.
So, like trash talk between the players?
Yeah, Isaiah Pacheco, man.
I was going to ask who was the one that was doing the talking.
Isaiah was having a good time.
Okay,
and he was letting the defense know about some things. He wasn't even on the field at the time. He was on the sidelines. And he was chirping.
Who's taking up for L'Jarius Sneed in the secondary? I remember when I talked to Jamar Chase and just like, how does that go with you and L'Jarius? And he basically was like, oh no, that guy trash talks. L'Jarius Sneed is a huge trash talker. Who's taking the mantle from L'Jarius and is trash talking in the secondary now?
Man, I'm not sure. I mean, they all can kind of chirp a little bit. I mean, yeah, Jaden, you can tell is going to have an attitude and
as a rookie.
The guys who are working kind of, we'll say second groupish, but Kamal Haddon, he's got a little talk to him too. I mean, those guys are brash. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, they're going to be talkers. But I'll tell you what. I mean, Trent McDuffie's not going to stand down to anybody. So.
Who was so Pacheco
and
was
Justin Reed? You can definitely hear him on the
for sure. So Pacheco was giving it from the sideline. Who was he going back and forth with? Just anybody in general, or was there one or two particular people that started jawing back and forth with Pop?
Bolton gave him a little bit back and forth.
Good.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, Justin Reed. They were going back a little back and forth, and Rice caught a touchdown on the last series for the ones there. And that was when Pacheco really let it fly. I mean, yeah, there were some various bombs and it was all in good fun. I mean, it was not mean spirited. I mean, he had a big smile on his face and he was laughing himself silly.
Here's what I want to know for training camp, because this is going to be really interesting heading to training camp. I mean, we're a couple of months away. Next year, training camp will start, I think, tomorrow with the new offseason OTAs, which we'll talk about because you cover all these OTAs and everything. So. But what's going to be really interesting is going back to a year ago, one of the things that we talked about and noticed early on, and then it ended up coming to fruition, was the confidence, cockiness, almost wanting to be bullies, the defense on the field against the best offense in the league, coming off the year where they were the best offense in the league and picked up every single yard available to them in the second half against the Eagles that they wanted to gain. And the defense was no, we're going to push you guys around. And to the point that Travis Kelce is going to be throwing punches in practice. We're going to bother you and be around you and punching the football out. And we don't give a bleep. This is our team too. We're here. But they were also able to do it because now we know what happened during the season, that the offense wasn't nearly as good as it was the year before. What's going to be really interesting is the offense took that. They knew they had to take that during training camp because the defense was winning. And the offense has never really experienced that, right? Where the defense is winning practice after practice after practice, and the offense is sort of stagnant at times. I think what I sort of take away, and maybe I'm just filling in the blanks that are there from not being out at OTAs, is there might be more of a chip on the offense's shoulder against the defense this year because of what took place in the offseason and training camp last year when the defense had the offense's number. Now the offense feels like they're in a position to go and get those guys back.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that is a really interesting dynamic that we're probably not talking enough about. And I tried to get into that with a little bit with Spags yesterday, but he wasn't really having it because – I mean, the defense right now, I mean, they're doing what they were doing last year at the end of the season, which is they're playing with a lot of swagger. You can see it, on the field. I mean, they know how good they were last year, and they know that, hey, they've got some things to work on. But I think you do. I mean, I think you see them playing with that little swagger, and now it's the offense that's playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, that they've got something to prove after last year. And I think you're seeing that dynamic. My concern, going into the season is then – usually, I mean, Andy Reid's teams are very clear about this. I mean, you look back at the number of players who were on this team from 2019, the turnover every year is significant. And yet the Chiefs have brought back every starter but one. Is there a likelihood? How much turnover are they going to have on the defensive side of the football? They might not have much. Is that a problem? I mean, is that lack of turnover going to be an issue? Because now you got a lot of guys who got a couple of rings and they're saying we were pretty good last year, and Spags had a great example. I mean, I went back and he had to have been what he was talking about with the team had to have been talking about the 2016-2017 Giants, because they were, I think, 5th in the league in scoring in 2016.
And defensively. Brought back
everybody else, and in 2017 everything fell apart. Defense was, I think, 29th in scoring the next year. I mean, they obviously had players. They had talent. They'd gone 11-5 the year before, and then under Bob McAdoo, just everything went down the toilet.
McAdoo.
And so I mean, you need fresh blood. I mean, I see guys like, and a significant one that really stands out to me is a guy like Trey Dean. I mean, he's right now, I mean, hey, third team guy, maybe second team guy as a safety. And it's going to be an uphill battle for him to make the team because there's a lot of guys in front of him. But that dude plays at 110 miles an hour. Whereas a lot of
9 miles an hour short of catching Rashee Rice.
Exactly. Wow, that was a good call.
Thank you.
And
sorry to interrupt.
Maybe a bad call.
I mean,
maybe
the veterans. Hey, it's off season, so then maybe they're going 80%.
Yeah.
Trey Dean's playing 110%.
Right.
He's going crazy.
Yeah.
But you need that. I mean, I think a defense especially when you're trying to replicate what you did the year before and not take a slide back, you need guys that are going to push you and light that fire. And one thing for this defense they need, obviously, is they need to be going up against a better offense than they did last year, which it looks like that they are. But they're going to need some young guys and new faces that are saying, wait a minute here, I'm going to take a grown man's job, to borrow Isaiah Pacheco's line. They need that attitude in that room.
Go ahead.
I was going one name that I think is interesting, and Chamari Connor, I think, is playing with a lot of on the line as well. FAU's playing with a lot on the line as well. But one name we heard a couple times yesterday that we both said, who? Kelvin Joseph.
Yeah.
The cornerback. And he was name dropped a couple times.
Yeah.
What are his chances of making the team? What does he bring? Was he with Seattle, I think, for a little bit before this?
He was with Seattle. He was with Dallas, I believe. Yeah, he's been with a few teams.
Multiple colleges. He's bounced around.
And, hey, the metrics numbers haven't been great for him. But, once again, this is the right player in the right system can sometimes make a difference. And you can see, he seems to be very comfortable already in Steve Spagnuolo's system. I'm assuming he's probably taken really well to Dave Merritt's instruction. Because he's been playing really well. He had an interception last week. Seems like he's been in the right place. He has been getting a lot of guys' attention. Players and coaches have been talking about him even unprompted. So that tells you a little bit. I think he's got a decent chance. Once again, it's a crowded room, and the Chiefs have a lot of young guys, and he's got an uphill battle. But so far, they're giving him some opportunities, and he's thriving in that spot. So I'd give him a decent chance.
He's 24, by the way, so younger than I think, at least younger than I expected for a guy's
like
bounce
a 4-year
to
veteran. Been in the league 4 years.
Yeah. He's bounced around, so it seems like he's been playing a long time because he's been at, is this his fourth stop?
Dallas in 21, Dallas in 22, Miami and Seattle last year.
So this is his fourth team.
Yeah.
And he played at LSU in Kentucky, so he had a couple of different colleges as well. So one other name that I wanted to talk to you about, and then we'll take a break, and I want to get into some wide receiver discussion. Steve Spagnuolo, when he was talking about the slot, he didn't fully buy in that, Trent McDuffie's just going to move outside and take the spot of L'Jarius Sneed. It was more of a, we'll see. Nobody's going to replace LJ, but, we'll see what we're going to do with that spot with Trent. And in the slot corner spot, he mentioned two guys. Again, the same two guys that were mentioned last week by different people. We've discussed a lot about Shamari Connor. But Nick Jones is now three different people in the last 2 weeks that have brought up Nick Jones playing in the slot. I don't want to overlook that by just simply focusing on what Shamari Connor can do in the slot, because it certainly seems like there's a decent amount of splitting those reps that if Steve Spagnuolo was also talking about playing the slot, Shamari and Nick Jones and, mentions him. Patrick Mahomes mentions him. Was it Trent McDuffie last week, mentioned the same ones, Shamari and Nick Jones. Dylan, you want to weigh in real quick?
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to ask Matt, if all these cornerbacks that we have and the fact that we don't spend money on L'Jarius Sneed, we're fine walking away just the same as Tyreek Hill almost, is that more Dave Merritt coaching these guys that we can get in the late rounds up, or Veach's eye for guys in the late round, or a marriage of both?
I think it's both. Absolutely is. I don't think there's any doubt that there's two positions that I think that the Chiefs scouting department and personnel department really do a good job at. And one's defensive backs in general. I think I threw safeties in there too, and linebackers. They because right now, the Chiefs seem like that they could build an entire secondary and a linebacker crew from undrafted guys, and then just give them to Brendan Daly and Dave Merritt, and they can coach them up. Because look at just some of the late round talent or even undrafted talent that the Chiefs have in both those rooms. And so, I do. I think that it's part of it. It is absolutely identifying talent, and part of it is coaching them up. And Dave Merritt, I mean, you heard him yesterday. I mean, good grief. How could you not want to play for Dave Merritt? Yeah. I mean, that'd just go through a wall for that guy.
So Nick Jones, how much of a...
Nick Jones, yeah. I mean, you can see, and some of that is, I mean, I think that the Chiefs have absolutely kind of determined a little bit of their personnel groups. So, hey, if they're in certain packages, I mean, it's not always, I don't think it'll necessarily be like a Chamari Connor is in the slot all the time. But it's like, hey, if they're going to be in the nickel look and they want a safety out there, it's going to be Chamari Connor. If they're in the nickel look and they want an extra corner, it's going to be Nick Jones. If you got Jones out there, you then have the flexibility that, hey, if you want McDuffie to match up against the guy in the slot, then you can do that and kick Jones outside. I mean, you've got that a little bit more flexibility with that than you do with Connor, whereas Connor, hey, if you can kind of interchange him a little bit with Justin Reed, because if you want Reed, maybe if it's going to be a tight end, and maybe you want a different matchup, you could a lot of like what the Chiefs used to do with Kendall Fuller and Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, you really have that kind of dual flexibility when you have Connor out there, because he and Reed can kind of play different sides of the field and kind of mix and match a little bit for you depending on what formations that you're getting. And then I'll bring in Jaden Hicks into this because I think he's going to be the dime linebacker this year. I mean, that's going to be a guy that
I'm excited about that.
I mean, he's going to be playing both safety positions, but I think he'll be that kind of dime guy in the box. And so that's kind of your other counter to Connor. I mean, Connor will probably be playing a little bit less of that, but Hicks is going to be playing that more.
Where's that leave Brian Cook then? Does that leave Brian Cook with a little lesser of a role, or because I mean he was really coming on before the injury?
Yeah. I think it depends about just where his health is. Right now he hasn't been participating in team drill. He's only been going through positional, and that was part of the plan. I mean, what I was told during the offseason is that they were like, hey, if Cook can get on the field during OTAs, that'll be great. And if he is in team periods by the end of the mini camp, even better. But they were like, hey, we were just hoping he can be on the field during the offseason workouts and then be a full go at training camp. So that's what I think we'll probably find out. I mean, I think there's a spot there. Absolutely. I mean,
sure.
I think fully healthy Brian Cook's your starter alongside that. Because and Jaden Hicks is, because you don't have Justin Reed under contract for next year. That's where you're expecting, hey, maybe that's your starting trio next year. I mean, there are three guys that play the most if Justin Reed doesn't come back. Hicks is going to be the idea would be that he's a backup this year, that he is just filling a particular role. He's going to be a four-team special teams player, four-phase special teams player, so he'll get a lot of snaps, clearly. But once he's fully healthy, I mean, I think you're hoping that Brian Cook is be able to step back into that free safety role.
We'll take a timeout, but just like the cornerback group specifically, putting Chamari Connor in the safety role, but the cornerback group, if we're looking at the top 6 cornerbacks for the Chiefs, you've got a first-rounder, a fourth-rounder, and then a 7th, a 7th, a 6th, and a 7th. With Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson, Kamal Hadden, and Nick Jones.
And then after that, you got like undrafted
guys. Like, Echo Boydo and those boys that are trying to make the squad as well.
Salty too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got a first rounder in McDuffie who is playing like a first round. That's awesome. But you filled the rest of your entire cornerback room with day 3 guys and undrafted guys,
scouting and coaching,
and you're not getting destroyed. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone next. All right, hanging out with Matt Derrick. He's presented by Cap One Lending. Freedom Loan at Cap One Lending. The exclusive loan helps you pay off your home in less than half the time, gives you access to your home's equity without having to refinance. Go to cap1lending.com. Matt Derrick, presented by Cap One Lending from ChiefsDigest.com, and 41 is the Mike podcast. Let's talk some kickoff rules, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Tobe was like a kid in a candy store yesterday. All he wanted to do was just talk ball and talk shop about the kickoff rules and all of the different ways that they are looking at it to break it down and differentiating between the XFL and what their rule is and trying to find ways to have the advantage and get to the finish line of what it's going to look like earlier than other teams that may eventually get there. And figure out, what the most ideal way of going about kicking the ball off and kickoff returns. He was having a lot of fun yesterday. What do you make of some of his comments about not a surprise that the hang time is not a big deal, but the accuracy that their plan is we want that ball to hit the ground between the 20 and the goal line. And for somebody that's not a kicker, that's not an easy target line, because if it lands at the 21, they get it at the 40. If it lands at the 1 yard deep into the end zone, they get it at the 30. So, if it goes out of bounds, they get it at the 40. Like, it's not an easy target zone for someone whose job is not just to simply kick a football.
And I'm not sure that they've really thought that through yet about whether that's a reviewable play. I mean,
if it lands at the 21,
call.
I mean, talking about where the ball lands. I mean, is that going to be? Can you challenge about whether or not the ball landed in the landing zone?
By week 3, yes. Week 1 and 2, maybe not.
You might need to work on that. I'm with Dave Tobe. I could sit down with him and talk about the kickoff rule for about 3 hours because it is. I mean, I know if you've seen the USFL or the XFL. I can't remember which one to call it these days. They're all merged and then the one and everything. I don't know. But I mean, it's one thing. There is like Dave Tobe mentioned though, there is a distinction because it's the NFL rule is that you can move once the ball hits the turf, whereas but it had to be touched in the XFL.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So that's going to add a little bit of a dynamic. This is going to be an action play though. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. I mean, unless a team is up and is deciding, like Dave Tobe said, we're going to boot the ball out of the end zone just to milk the clock here a little bit and not worry about the yards and just make sure we don't give up a big play. You're going to have to return the football. I mean, teams are going to try and do that. And it's been clear, even going back to rookie minicamp when the Chiefs were working on it with the rookies, that they want to put the ball on the turf. That's going to be absolutely the goal. They don't want the other team to make a clean catch. They want the ball to hit the turf because you never know what's going to happen once the ball hits the turf. You might even recover the football once the ball hits the ground. So, and the fact that you can move once the ball hits the ground gives the coverage team an advantage to me. I think that's a big part of it. But, to me, certainly from watching it, the strategy of the kickoff team should absolutely be to try to make the return team as uncomfortable as possible, to put them in a corner where they don't have a lot of options, where the returner can't have his eyes downfield looking about, where his blockers are set up and what's happening, that he's going to have to concentrate on picking up the ball off the ground and, coming from a dead stop and then moving. I mean, that's what you're going to be going for, and to try and just put them in the most disadvantageous position possible. But at the same time, because of the way that, the players are lined up, I mean, if you get past the first line of coverage, the last guy that's standing is the kicker. I mean, it's going to be one of those things that you make one guy miss, you might be gone.
Can you fair catch at all? I know they're trying to take, but my point is, let's say there's 3 seconds left, right?
Well, if you fair catch, you'll get it from the fair catch spot.
Can you get it from the fair catch spot? Because my point is, if you're trying to save time, let's say you have Mahomes or Josh Allen, and you're like, you know what, we don't want to waste time off the clock. This play might take 10 seconds. Right? Can you?
I mean, I don't think there.
Or give yourself up, or how would that work?
My understanding is the only thing you can do is give yourself up.
So take a knee.
Fair catches are not allowed, but you can take a knee. I mean, you can go to the ground and everything.
Because I just wonder if let's just say there's like 9 seconds left in a game, right? Let's say the 13-second game with the Chiefs. Would they just say, you know what? we're not going to deal with taking 7 seconds off the clock trying to get an extra 15 yards. Let's just try and kneel or take it right then at the, let's say it's the 15, and have Holmes go out and try and see what he can do with 2 or 3 plays.
Yeah, and if you're the Bills, you certainly wouldn't want to kick it through the end zone in that situation to give them the ball at 25.
No.
You definitely wouldn't want to do that to give them the ball at the 30. One of the things that I'm fascinated by, as you mentioned, so you get past that first line of defense, and it can open up, like the Red Sea, and you've only got the kicker, whoever that might be a safety, whoever, that's going to be there to offer the last line of defense. I'm really curious to see how the special teams coaches will go about deploying their kickoff coverage players. Will they all just simply go straight ahead, and now you got to beat your blocker? Do they peel back and go a certain way because you've kicked it to one side or the other? And then on the kickoff returns, like, you can set up like actual real plays, like a counter or a trap with your blockers, or a pulling blocker that starts over from the right hash and he pulls over to the left hash and kicks the guy out. And then whoever doesn't have the ball is sort of a lead blocker through one of the holes. Like, you've got some actual like real life strategy and real football plays with the football in the hand of a runner and blockers there trying to set up certain defenders, whereas it's always felt like it was just a scrum and a free-for-all, even though there was a little more conformity to it than it seemed like from the novice outside looking in. But this feels like it'll be much closer to what we see in general of football players with offensive linemen and attaching to a block and trying to move guy out here, or having actual counters and reverses and pulling linebackers that end up being like guards or something like that.
I mean, it's the way it certainly looks to a degree is that it's going to end up looking a lot more like a play from scrimmage once it unfolds. I mean, because of it's the way that the players are lined up, and 2, the speed at which they'll be going, since you don't have, the coverage team won't be coming a 50-yard sprint downfield where they're now running at full speed. I mean, they're kind of going to be coming from a, line of scrimmage stopping point.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to be able to reach that full speed point. And I think it was interesting, Tobe talking about having maybe more of a running back type rather than a receiver type, because it's no longer about making one guy miss and making your cut and then hitting the hole and going upfield like, you would expect from a receiver and a typical returner in that spot. I mean, as he was talking about this, I'm thinking, man, now Davis would probably have like 12 returns a season with this new rule.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, you're going to have 2 guys lined up in the return zone. So, and then one thing, I mean, how do you split that field? Because we're talking about the kicks. I mean, okay, teams are probably going to kick a lot of line drives because they want the ball to get there quickly. You're not going to have time for the guy that you want to maybe return the kick to be the guy who returns the kick.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've got 2 guys back there and, one of them is the bigger threat than the other, I mean, you're going to kick away from the other and go to the other side. And there's not necessarily going to be the time for those 2 guys to switch. And even if you're line them both up near the middle of the field, there's not necessarily the time for your desired returner to get to. I mean, if they're kicking towards the corner of the end zone, trying to get it down that direction, I mean, you don't have that time. But maybe you will have a time for something tricky, like a reverse and
throw across the field or whatever. If you
go full. I mean, it's going to be kind of a rugby play, so maybe that's nice having a rugby player in your team.
Yeah. But you do have to remind him that you cannot run, drop kick the ball, and then continue to run and go pick it up again.
But Doug Flutie did it, I thought.
He did it on a field goal.
that was
been a smart ass.
In live play, to see Luis Rees-Zammit run, drop the ball, kick it over the defender's head, run around the defender, pick it back up and run, that's quite illegal.
I mean,
in
it would
the
be
NFL game.
very cool to see.
It'd be amazing. It'd be
allow
amazing
it
to see
for
that.
just kickoffs.
Just for kickoffs, you can do that. The return type I thought was really interesting from Dave Tobe, because the point that he made also, if you're not the one that has the ball returning, I need you to block.
Right.
So which eliminates Xavier Worthy to a degree. Like
exactly.
So it's going to be, also might eliminate Luis Rees-Zammit, because it's like, well, rugby guy, but he doesn't block much in rugby.
Well,
so,
they're going to teach him to block.
Right, I know.
They want him to return it.
They want him to, but if he's out there, I'm probably not kicking it to him because I've just taken a blocker away because, you need the pass pro, and I wouldn't trust Luis Rees-Zammit in pass pro to block. But also, what's the play set up type, though? He certainly has the body type and the background to return it. But if Dave Tobe is saying we need a guy that can return it, a running back type that also is like a pass pro that is able to block if he doesn't have the ball, well, that's a lot of learning on the fly for Luis Rees-Zammit that didn't do a whole lot of blocking. He was more of that wing that was running on the outside in rugby.
And then there's the other, kind of dual edge of it, which is that if you've got two guys back there and one's more your return guy and one's more the block guy, well, what happens when the kick team kicks it to the block guy?
Right, absolutely.
And now your maybe bigger, slower guy is the one returning it.
Yeah.
If you got let's say you had a fullback, and let's say the Chiefs had a guy like Carson Steele.
I was thinking the same thing, Carson Steele.
Good example. You got him and Luis Rees-Zammit back there. Well, you're the kicking team. You're probably going to kick to Carson Steele and take your chances.
Yep, absolutely. Because even if he breaks through, you're probably not going to have a long return. Yeah. Hopefully, you could be able to catch him.
Exactly.
As opposed to Rees-Zammit, as Reese Lightning is pretty damn fast.
It is going. I mean, that's a better nickname than LRZ, by the way. But,
yeah, I like Reese Lightning.
But it's going to be such a strategic play. There's no doubt about it. I mean, especially early on, I'm just fascinated to be how different teams approach it differently, because not every team's going to do it the same. Dave Tobe's going to approach it differently than some other guys are going to, and it is going to be so fun to watch.
I do wonder if we get to a point to where teams just go, okay, this is too much of it. If the return teams are really good at it, if teams go too much of a crapshoot, look, giving them the ball at the 20 or the 25, we decided just to kick it through the end zone, and those 5 yards didn't mean that much. Just kick it to the end zone. These extra 5 yards don't mean much.
Well, bad offenses, you like the Panthers, you might as well do that.
Because you're going to keep them down there anyway, as opposed to the best chance they would have is getting a big return to get into field goal range or whatever. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to talk about OTAs and what that may mean for next year with the NFLPA and the Players Association looking to change up the offseason. And we'll talk about a few other things with Matt Derrick. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. All right, hanging out with Matt Derrick, presented by Cap One Lending. He is from ChiefsDigest.com, and 41 is the Mike podcast. All right, OTAs, these have been, it's been a conversation that came up yesterday with some of the coaches on the Players Association wanting to get some things changed in the offseason with the OTAs and a different calendar. You've covered all these OTAs and training camp, et cetera. You're out there when you're allowed to be out there. What do you make of what the different calendar, I guess, will probably look like starting next year?
I mean, I don't know, because I've yet to find anybody who likes this on any side.
Apparently, a majority of the players do, which is odd.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, the weird thing is that, I mean, like, the NFLPA has gone through a leadership change. So they have a new executive director. They just elected a new president. This proposal has been in the works for a while, so I don't know if this is a J.C. Treader thing, because he's no longer the president, whether this was really the bulk of it was done under his leadership, and DeMarie Smith, the old executive director. I mean, I know that some of the national reporting on it has been that this might just be dead on arrival, and I think it probably will, because it's just a terrible idea. I mean, even for the players. I mean, you're talking about trading 3 weeks of voluntary workouts for 3 weeks of mandatory, basically, training camp.
But really, the voluntary workouts are voluntary for franchise tag players and like Kelsey and Jones and Tooney and guys like that. For the most part, though, it's pretty involuntary for these OTAs.
You're certain players and you don't show up. I mean, I've always said, I mean, it is voluntary until it isn't.
Yeah, it's not a great idea to be voluntarily turning yourself in if you're Isaiah Buggs right now, as he did yesterday, as opposed to being at OTAs.
Well, I mean, I guess he voluntarily did something yesterday.
So. He did volunteer to do that.
He voluntarily did something. But no, I mean, and part of it too is that, I mean, you think about it from the team side. I mean, if you work in, say, the front office and you're in scouting, you're even one of the coaches and everything, I mean, you're working solid through the draft. So it's not like you're getting any vacation time, because once the season's over, you're working on draft prep. Mm-hmm. So you're working through that. So now it's like, when's your vacation? Because I don't know if you move this, I don't know if you're going to have one, because then after the draft, you're going to start getting ready for camp and everything like that. The idea, right now with the workouts and everything, is essentially that there's at least 6 to 8 weeks of dead period.
Yeah.
For everybody in the NFL. And I'm just not sure you'd have that exactly with moving things around a little bit.
Well, that's what's surprising about if they were to pass this and the OTAs moving to training camp and having a longer ramp up, and so you're looking at mid-June to February or whatever, is that when you have this 6-week break, was it Spagnuolo that brought up yesterday? And it was one of the points that I had heard, last week or whenever this started to break, and on Tuesday or whatever. One of the points that was brought up was, the 6-week break with the OTAs and the minicamp, when it's done, you've got 6 weeks that typically coincides with your family and kids out of school at that point.
Yeah.
And, yes, you'll be off in, at the end of May when, your kids are out of school for a little bit. But if you're going to camp in mid-June, you've probably got maybe a couple or 3 weeks with your kids out of school to go on a vacation. This, by starting training camp in, the third week of July, you got like 6 to 7 or 8 weeks, maybe, depending on when your OTAs are, that your kids are out of school and you don't have to plan around spring break for anything like that. You just go and take your vacation. It was an interesting point by Spagnuolo, and it was one that was brought up on Tuesday or Wednesday that I hadn't thought about from that perspective of if you have a family and kids in school, this OTA calendar would make more sense when we talk, you got the take vacations all you want. You can be out the whole time. Right, but anybody that's got kids knows that you can't just take a vacation whenever you want. It's based around spring break and other things. And, everybody's, for the most part, off for the summer. And so if you want to take a trip with the family and other family members that also have kids, it's tough to plan that around a spring break if they're in two different school districts or different cities, because they don't always coincide.
Yeah, some of that really, I think is what would bother some people with it. Because it would definitely make that more difficult. There's a hidden part to it too, which is that we're focusing a lot on the OTAs and the mini camp and getting rid of that, and then moving it to basically taking those 3 weeks and moving it to July. But there's there's still a month of basic, because we're talking about coming about our Chiefs experience, because remember Andy Reid's basically gotten rid of phase 1.
Yeah, that's right.
And most of phase 2 in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Whereas, around the rest of the league, I mean, players are reporting in mid-April. For teams that have new head coaches, they're reporting in early April, and then they're working through mid-June. So you're talking about getting rid of all that too, which I think the players would love to do, because, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, players hate the off-season workouts. They hate the OTAs. I mean, it's too long, they feel like, and maybe just too spread out. But again, I mean, are you talking about going into a situation where now the players are going to end their season in January or February and then just not do anything team-related with football until June?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds like a recipe for disaster to me.
That's what I said. I go, how many Rashee Rice situations happen now?
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be but how many extracurricular things where there's less structure? Now you have more time off. How many players now come back overweight?
Yeah.
I'm not saying every player, but there are going to be some.
some.
The Jamarcus Russell types, right? The guys who this is football. This is my job. I'll work out when I'm supposed to work out, but I'm not doing anything extra. How many players does that happen to?
And even from not even that standpoint, even from like a football standpoint, Gary Dieter brought this up yesterday. I thought it was interesting when he was talking about, okay, so if you're a veteran team, then that probably isn't that big of a deal that you show up and have that slower ramp-up period. Like, Dieter was like, I would love that. I'd love to take away the OTAs instead of getting to camp and then, 3 days later, we're wearing pads and hitting. He's like, if we've got a couple of weeks where we're slowly ramping up into that, he's like, I would prefer that. But if you're a younger team and you don't have the OTAs along the way in the installs, that then you can go on your own and continue to work on those before you get to training camp, now that's all happening at training camp. Now those installs and everything, and he's like, if you're a younger team, I think this would be terrible. For a younger team, a bad team that's trying to integrate new players or whatever, but if you're a veteran team that's got a lot of the same players, you can take the OTAs off, go to training camp, and probably be just fine. But the work with the rookies and rookie minicamp, then the 2 different OTAs that are there, when you're doing the installs, when you're going through all of those, and then, hey, here's 6 weeks off, but we've already done all of these practices to give you this baseline to be ready for then training camp.
Yeah. And you think about drafting a player, I mean, and assuming they're not going to move the draft, you draft a player in late April, and you don't see him until mid-June.
See him mid-June, yeah.
I mean, to Sterling's point, I mean, are they going to gain 20 pounds? I mean, you don't know.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to it that to me don't make sense. I mean, and the idea of having a training camp period of just playing against yourself for 10 weeks, these guys, it drives them crazy for doing it for 6 or 7 weeks. You do it for 10, they're going to want to kill each other.
This is probably a longer conversation, but would it be the end of St. Joe? If they've got to be in St. Joe from mid-June to late August?
I mean, it's going to be the end of St. Joe once Andy Reid's gone anyway, but I think if they had a 10-week
add 4 or 5 more weeks to staying in a dorm.
What's the benefit of going away for 3 weeks if you just said you just wanted to go away for some bonding experience?
Yeah, so, and I don't want that to happen. I like St. Joe.
Yeah.
Players don't, but I enjoy it.
Sometimes the players even like it too for a little bit.
3 more weeks of you driving there and back, Matt. Let's continue the football conversation around the Chiefs and some other things in the NFL as well. Daniel Holmes, RGR Football and Cover One podcast. Love having him on the show. Daniel, welcome in, brother. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
We are doing just fine. We're doing just fine. I appreciate you coming on the show. One of the things that I was looking forward to talking to you about, because I was needling Sterling a little bit earlier in the show, because Sterling and I have talked about sort of the Jawaan Taylor contract, and he hates it, but, you know, not rooting against Jawaan Taylor, but and I think there's a lot of reaction from this last season about what a bad contract, what a bad signing, and it was a rough year for Jawaan Taylor with some of the numbers and the penalties and et cetera. But you did a deeper dive into the season that was Jawaan Taylor. And I was needling Sterling and, you know, just joking with him about, boy, I wonder if you're going to hate this conversation with Daniel Holmes coming up at noon. But just sort of curious as to, as you do that deeper dive, what do you come away with? That, you know, it was an overreaction to his season? Was it as bad as it looked, or it certainly was portrayed? Are there positives that, hey, you know what, this is going to look different this year? As you look back on the year for Jawaan Taylor, what did you come away with in your deeper dive?
Yeah, anytime you have 23 accepted penalties, it's going to look really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much looking past the numbers, especially when it comes to the penalties. So that's why we do the deep dive, right? So we can take the penalties and separate that from the play on the field, because while everyone looks at the numbers of those penalties, and obviously it's never fun when you're negating plays or you're giving your quarterback a 1st and 20 or a 1st and 15 or even 2nd and 15. So you have to be able to do a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, I think Jawaan Taylor was a good on-field tackle away from the penalties. Now, that's part of his entire process. He's still 26 years old. I think that's something people forget, that, yes, he's already played a few years in Jacksonville, and he comes over last year. Still learning the system. Obviously, there's not a ton of differentiating factors for the offensive lineman, more terminology than anything. But he's a much better run blocker than PFF and fans think. And that's one of the big differentiating factors that I found when I was watching him, is that he's a lot more powerful. He's got 35-inch arms, and he uses them very effectively. That burst that he can use to get off the line of scrimmage really helps in the run game too, especially for some of the wider zone plays that he's got to get maybe in front of maybe in front of a 3-tech. He has to kind of get really in front of them and be able to block them off. So his biggest problems, from what I'm looking at, are the way that he pass protects is that we know that he wants to time the snap, right? And that's exactly why everyone got all up in arms. Well, he's trying to get off the ball too early. Look around the league. Everyone's trying to use any advantage that they can to be able to get to their spot, specifically from a tackle perspective, to beat a lot of these faster, bendier guys around the edge. So if you can get to your spot first, you have a better chance of winning that pass rush rep, and that's really where it comes down. A lot of times he gets too far back or he gets too deep in his set, and he is susceptible to inside counters. That's really what it comes down to for me in pass protection standpoint, because I thought he was better against power than he was in Jacksonville last year. And then multiple times, specifically through the end of the season, into the postseason, he was a much better run blocker, than he was earlier in the season. And then another year off season under Andy Heck, I think he's only going to get better. And yes, I know I'm trying to level with fans here. It's not a good outlook for the penalties. It's not. Mm-hmm. But that's not sticky, right? 23 penalties is not a sticky stat. I don't know anybody that just gets 23 penalties every single year. So at least from that prism, that perspective, we can expect a little bit better year in terms of the penalties that were accepted against Jawaan Taylor.
How much do you think, and this would be, you'd have to get into the mind of Jawaan Taylor and, in a candid moment, but I do wonder whether an excuse or not, how much it was sort of in his head that, game number one, he wasn't, the biggest star or highlighted when he was in Jacksonville. They made the playoffs. They played a couple of playoff games, but it wasn't about Jawaan Taylor and the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was about the Kansas City Chiefs in that second game that they played and Patrick Mahomes' injury. Then his very next game, he doesn't know what's going on. The people on the field don't know what's going on. But nationally, the talk is about Jawaan Taylor's alignment and his get-off in timing the snap. And that became the NFL conversation that whole week. And then it was the most obvious thing that was going to happen, Daniel, was that he was going to be singled out, and there were going to be illegal formations and holdings and false starts on Jawaan Taylor because they were going to have a specific close eye on him. And throughout the season, you saw his alignment sort of, try to move up in different places, timing of the count at certain times, better or worse. How much do you think it was in his head of trying to readjust his alignment, trying to readjust the timing of the count, something he had done for 4 years in his career and was never singled out or spotlighted that this is the poster child of a problem in the NFL, and the refs are going to focus on him and single him out and make sure that this guy is not going to be trying to push the envelope the way that he was before?
It certainly felt like he was the spotlight. In that game against the Jags, he had 5 penalties himself, which is, again, not something you see a ton, even from Jawaan Taylor, who does have a little bit more of a penalty problem than a lot of other tackles. So I don't know, obviously, the situation, if he was targeted, if it actually impacted him. From what we've seen, it did feel like it did a little bit because he also got benched in that game for a drive. He didn't play a drive in that game, and that can mentally mess with you, especially when you go back into the game later and affect, if I mess up here, I might get benched again. So all of that can play into it, but I think throughout the season he did get more comfortable. The Chiefs, obviously, Andy Reid and Andy Heck figured out something to help him mentally just stay in it and get back into it. So as much as I think we want to assume it was a little bit of a targeted issue, it wasn't anywhere else in the NFL. That's why it feels more targeted against Jawaan Taylor after that first game. Maybe they were put onto it and said, it's the return to Jacksonville. Let's just kind of tweak this a little bit and see if we can get him and maybe other guys around the league to pay attention to where they're lined up, how fast they're getting off the snap. But at the end of the day, I mean, we can't really know. So I definitely think to an extent it mentally affected him, whether it was targeted or not.
Daniel Holmes is our guest, RGR Football and Cover One podcast. Part of the conversation around Jawaan Taylor is like if it was Andrew Wiley, I think people would take it with a grain of salt and go, all right, this guy's a late-round draft pick, or even if you had like an undrafted free agent or somebody that was filling in and grew into that type of player, okay, yeah, you sort of know what you're getting. But the contract is a part of it. Cost acquisition is always an aspect of when we're talking about a player and his performance. And he did not live up to $20 million last year as the right tackle. And I wonder in your mind, as you see, year number one, is there, a chance, or you look at Jawaan Taylor, do you think he can ever live up to the contract in his play to be a guy that's worth $20 million on the right side? Is he good enough and talented enough that it'll click, figure it out in the offense, and people will look at it and go, okay, yeah, that was a good signing because look what they've done for at least one part of that tackle combo.
Yeah, this is kind of going back a little bit to the CEH selection, correct? Right. It was a first-round pick you spent on a running back. I'm going to tell you right now, Jawaan Taylor is a much more talented right tackle than CEH ended up being an NFL running back. The numbers are what they are now. It's pretty much a flat rate, $20 million across the board. And the Chiefs paid it. So from a year one to year two perspective, I think that there's a lot of fan mind growth that can happen because had he not have been affected, by those penalties, I think people would have been far less against the selection, or against the bringing him in. So at least from that perspective, there's a lot of room to grow, and I do still think that he can not only get better, but he's not in his prime yet. He's not in his prime of his age or his physical attributes. So there's still a lot that can happen from that perspective. So I believe that he's going to get better this year under Andy Heck and Andy Reid. But mentally, I think his biggest issue is going to be trying to put everything that happened last year aside and just focus on getting better on the field because he's still a very talented player and he's not going to be playing left tackle for the Chiefs. So everyone can kind of put that out of their mind considering they drafted Wanya Morris, who played left tackle last year and then wanted to trade up for Kingsley Suamataia, that tells us that, okay, that ship has sailed. This is your right tackle now. So he doesn't have to worry about changing positions. He can really just focus on playing right tackle and getting back to the level that he played his last year in Jacksonville, which I believe he's more than capable of getting to.
Daniel Holmes is our guest, RGR Football and Cover One podcast. Real quick on that point about Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia being, those draft picks, a third rounder and a second rounder, respectively. As you look at the offensive line, is there an expected level of improvement and development from Wanya Morris to where he will be a perfectly fine representable tackle and play a representative tackle in the NFL, that, he's not going to be somebody that the Chiefs have to scheme around, plan around for, Tooney to help out or certain things like that, he just simply goes out there, doesn't have to be Trent Williams, but also don't be, a complete and total negative that's out there. Is there an expected level improvement from Wanya Morris to be that, or is there enough there from Kingsley coming into the NFL from college that he could be that guy in year one?
Yeah, considering, like I said, that the Chiefs were looking to trade up for Kingsley, and word has it that they also were eyeing a trade up for Amarius Mims in the first round, it leads me to believe that they did not feel comfortable enough at that point that Wanya Morris was going to be ready to just be your day one starter at left tackle, to have somebody come in to not only compete but possibly win that job. So the only real issue that I had, which, again, it's a very big issue because you pass a lot, is his pass protection was less than desirable. He was a good run blocker, but he consistently got off the ball late, which puts you in a bad position. We talked about Jawan Taylor and his ability to get beat on the inside. Well, Wanya Morris was busy trying to get off the ball. That leaves you susceptible to not only getting beat around the edge, but having to work too quickly to get to the edge, and also compounding that, being beat on the inside. So for Patrick Mahomes, who has dealt with the last 2 and 3 years of Donovan Smith and Orlando Brown and Wanya Morris, who all have different issues in pass protection, I think that they're trying to find somebody else to come in and solidify the left tackle position. Obviously, I don't think they're just going to give it to Kingsley Suamataia, but I do believe that as of now, he has sort of the inside track there because of how they have coveted him, and because, at least, again, I don't know for sure. I don't have any real sources on the inside to say they don't believe in Wanya Morris, but given what we know about the tackle position and wanting to trade up to get him and Amarius Mims, it does feel like they're much more confident in somebody else getting that job than they are with Wanya Morris day one.
So I want to build off that, because the point about Wanya Morris being a better run blocker than pass blocker, where Donovan Smith was a better pass blocker than run blocker, that those things working hand in hand with the passing game overall and the deep passing game. Patrick Mahomes has talked about it. Other players have discussed it about the deep passing game for the Chiefs and reintegrating that back into their offense with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, and what they can do and what they were unable to do when they were going up against two deeps and shell coverage to make them play everything underneath. And then last year, with some of the penalties and also the left tackle play at times and the inability with wide receivers, it almost felt like it was non-existent, or they were daring the Chiefs to do it because they didn't believe they would be effective at doing that. So I do wonder, how much do you expect with those things going hand in hand? You need the protection to be able to work the deep passing game. You need the players in the deep passing game to be effective. How much will that be reintegrated into this Chiefs offense, and can it come close to what we saw the first 4 years or so, 5 years of Patrick Mahomes, when you had Legion of Zoom and that threat that every blade of grass the Chiefs can score a touchdown from at any given time?
Yeah, that's, again, it's a great point, especially because we've already heard Patrick talk about how much that, he thinks that they're going to be able to do that again. And this brings me back a lot to, while you can have speed, it's not all speed is the same, right? Like MVS last year, who could threaten deep, he was more build-up speed. And that's another area that I think the Chiefs have improved upon with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. They both can get up to speed very, very quickly, and that really threatens defenses deep, and that's where you can create holes over the middle of the field for Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, and that's the big thing that they're going to be looking to improve upon from a attacking the field at all levels perspective, which I do believe they're going to definitely be able to get back to. So I think that they're going to actually be able to threaten and still want to throw the football deep and actually be able to complete a few of them. Yeah. Also because both Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown can track the football down the field better than MVS, better than McCole Hardman, who should have had 3 separate maybe touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins in the playoffs, and he didn't see any of the footballs at all in that game. So, I mean, when you just consider the differences from a skill level perspective and the way that they're going to be able to quickly address or quickly attack downfield, that's another area where the pass protection has to hold up for maybe that half second more to be able to just get the ball downfield, especially because they want to attack it more. They don't have to use all these quick passes or the screens that we've seen over the past year for Rashee Rice and so on and so forth. Just that half second more. So that's why I still lean to the pass protection maybe needs to be a little bit more implemented and a little bit, I guess, improved upon for them to be able to do that. And that's another reason why I lean towards, Kingsley being the guy at left tackle. But maybe Wanya comes in, in training camp and really has improved and taken what he's learned from last year with starting experience and OTAs and all that stuff and just works and works and works. So I'm excited to see that training camp battle in person. Yeah. I'll be in training camp at some point. It'll be a lot of fun. But to answer the broad question, I definitely think they're going to be able to throw the ball downfield pretty successfully this year.
The football part of the disappointment with Rashee Rice is what he was able to do as the season went on and as the Chiefs recognized more and more that this is the guy that will be the difference maker for us, that if we're going to have a number one receiver, it's got to be this guy. We got to find ways to get him the ball, whether that be put him in space against the zone coverage or throw a wide receiver screen to him, a quick slant, put the ball in his hands, the yards after catch. This is going to be something we can utilize while he gets more and more used to the offense. And the disappointing part with the offseason for Rashee Rice is if there is an extended suspension for him. I was really excited about what the translation would be from the end of his rookie year through an entire offseason and getting more and more of the playbook, more and more of the positions, more and more of how to be utilized, and then starting the season, especially with the Hollywood. This was before Xavier Worthy because, even the car accident happened before Xavier Worthy, but what that would look like. And that's one of that's the football side of the disappointment is if he's suspended for 6 or 8 weeks, well, he can't be around the team, and now he's coming back to the team and starting from training camp again. And at what point does he then look like he did at the end of last year rather than building off that and hitting the ground running in week number 1 and looking better than he did last year?
Yeah, it's hard to judge, right? Because we've seen, just go back to Jameson Williams, who was drafted by the Lions, and he's had multiple off seasons where he's had issues off field, whether it be injury or the betting thing. So he's never been fully integrated into that offense. And this is the first year people are like, well, he's going to finally have a full off season into it. And that first off season is a rookie. So let me just get my dog real quick, who also agrees.
What's the dog's name?
Her name is Scherzer, after Max Scherzer.
Nice, I love that. Oh, you know what? You're a Tigers fan.
I am a Tigers fan. Back when they actually wanted to pitch well and win some games and lose World Series, and that's what I remember about that.
Yeah, I thought maybe you'd go with the Gambler or something, or Kenny Rogers.
Pudge.
Yeah, Pudge maybe. Pudge maybe Miggy. Miggy the dog would be a nice one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I was always a big defense and pitcher.
I get it.
Pitcher fan. So. Always loved, and honestly, Verlander will always be my favorite pitcher. But for whatever reason, my wife and I decided that Scherzer, because Max Scherzer was drafted and played for the Diamondbacks, which is her favorite team.
Oh.
So we both had a mutual
nice.
appreciation for Max Scherzer. So that's how we ended up with Scherzer for my dog's name.
See, and the connection that I have is that he went to Mizzou, so we're all sort of connected there. We're all connected with Scherzer.
That's a beautiful little triangle there for Max Scherzer and my dog. So that's very cool. See, the things you learn, right?
Yes.
Just from a dog barking.
I love it. And that's why I want to explore it. Okay, what's going on with the dog in the background? Scherzer. She sounds like a good dog.
Oh, she is. She just barks at anything that moves.
Yeah, just helping you guys
dog
out.
Stuff, as usual. So back to the Rashee Rice stuff. The good news on the football front is that he has been very into everything with training with Bobby Stroop, with Patrick Mahomes at OTAs. He does seem, for whatever reason, maybe not fully mentally engaged from an off-field perspective, but when it comes to practice and getting on the field and doing that stuff, fully mentally engaged. So there is a benefit there. The problem, like you said, is going to be if he is suspended, that typically means you have zero contact with the team for as long as you are suspended. You can't practice. You can't do anything. And you can do as much on your own as you want to. It's not game speed. It's not Patrick Mahomes throwing you the football. It's not timing-based stuff. And you're not learning the rest of the adjustments that the offense is making week in and week out. Yeah. And you know, Travis Kelce was talking about how many plays that they've been installing on the New Heights podcast, and that happens throughout the season too. You install new plays week to week based on, you know, matchups or what defenses are doing to you. You know, that 4-week adjustment period you have from week 1 to week 4 into the first month of the season, you start to learn, all right, what are we going to be able to do? What are we doing best? How can we best maximize the offense? That's the stuff he's going to miss out on, and that's what worries me because like you were talking about, we have now the Chiefs have 2 new wide receivers in Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. They're going to be asked to kind of carry a lot of the heavy load early on in the season. What does that mean for Rashee Rice when he comes back? You can't just throw him back in and do the exact same thing. Offense is going to it's going to function differently. And he's also like the only quote-unquote big-bodied guy not named, you know, Justin Watson and whatever happens with Justin Ross, who we don't expect to make the roster. At least I don't. I don't know about you guys, but that's how are they going to implement him? Is he going to be more on the outside? Are they going to have to throw him back into what he did at SMU because they have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown? It's all of this is fundamental learning early in the season that he's going to be missing out on, and that the Chiefs are going to have to wait however long his suspension is to figure out what they can utilize best with him, with those guys on the field. So it's such a hard thing to have immediately after your rookie season, because this is where you learn the most.
Yep.
You do all the learning your rookie season, and then that next year is where people, typically wide receivers, especially ones that kind of broke out as a rookie, really take the next step. And it's going to be stunted a little bit, and that's got to be extremely frustrating, not just for the Chiefs, but for fans as well, which, you know, we all know watching last year, watching someone finally take the mantle as a rookie receiver was exciting to watch, and now it's going to be a little stunted.
Visiting with Daniel Holmes, RGR Football and Cover One podcast. You've been gracious with your time. One quick one, and then we'll let you go. It's about the wide receivers. But what we've seen with these contracts and what Jalen Waddle got and Nico Collins, but, you know, Waddle getting 28 and a quarter, you know, annual average value with his 3-year extension. To me, that sort of highlights even more like the strategy for the Chiefs not to play in that market, not to swim in that pool, but not necessarily the full-on running back strategy of churn and burn, but, you know, draft wide receivers, develop them, get a guy on a 1-year prove-it deal, and move forward there and let other teams pay the $30, $35, $36 million per year, whatever we'll see Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase get, because A.J. Brown's getting 32. So whatever they're going to get, let the other teams pay that and have your quarterback make the wide receivers better rather than rely on the wide receivers making your quarterback better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you would look at 2023 and say this is the model for being a successful offense, right?
I don't disagree.
So at least they were able to get back to the simplicity late in the season. They ran the ball better. They were able to just kind of, all right, we're going back to basics, guys. Wide receivers, this is where you need to be. We're not going to throw the ball downfield a ton. When we do, it's pretty much you're going to be wide open that way. So looking at it from a perspective of if they can simplify and Patrick Mahomes just, you know, is Patrick Mahomes, yeah, you can come win back-to-back Super Bowls without really paying anybody outside of MVS, and you can look really, really good from that perspective. And then you move on from him because it wasn't cost-effective, which, you know, let's be honest, we all knew it wasn't when he signed, right? We were looking at that contract like that makes no sense. And it ended up, you know, I'll never forget playoff MVS.
Yeah.
They don't win Super Bowls without playoff MVS.
He earned the contract with what he did in the postseason, you know.
He earned those rings.
Yeah, but just the general contract with the production, it didn't match.
So yeah, and those honestly, if you look at it for the last 2 years, they got wide receiver basically Juju Smith-Schuster and Rashee Rice in terms of yardage, touchdowns, that kind of stuff. They almost were the exact same, 900-plus yards and then 6-7 touchdowns. That's what they were able to get out of those two receivers back-to-back. So one was that one-year prove-it deal, and then he wanted more money. Patriots ended up paying him. Look at that. His knee didn't work out. Shocker. And now we're back in the same situation where, you had this rookie last year who broke out. Now you bring in another one-year contract, and you draft another rookie, and this is where, at least to me, it feels like the sweet spot's going to be for them. You find those guys that want to get paid one other time because of whether it's injury or just maybe not being in the right system or whatnot, and you get that one-year deal to kind of round out and also teach these younger players how it works in the NFL, because let's be honest, this is going to be Hollywood Brown's going to be the most successful wide receiver that these guys have played with.
Yeah.
And that's saying something.
Yeah.
So it's a good learning experience for them. It's a great opportunity for Marquise Brown to possibly win the Super Bowl and get paid one more time. And so you bring all that together, and this is a great situation for them to be in, because if they hit on Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, off-field stuff aside, they will have to pay one of those guys later. But you make that bet when you trade away Tyreek Hill, and you hope you can figure it out, and they did.
Yeah. Daniel Holmes, RGR Football and Cover One podcast. Daniel, thank you so much for the time, man. Appreciate it. Enjoyed the conversation, and take care. We'll catch up soon, and give Scherzer a little belly rub for us. The actual pitcher, I mean.
Oh, yeah. I'll make sure to get on that. I'll get in contact with his agent real quick. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Appreciate it. There's Daniel Harms. Great stuff, man. RGR Football, go check it out. He's got YouTube breakdowns. I think he's got the Juwan Taylor one up there. Rashee Rice, he's, gone and looked into what he did late in the season and how, translatable that'll be in the expected level of improvement to year number 2. And I think most of the breakdown of Juwan Taylor is just, I don't know why he keeps talking about and looking at the camera and saying Sterling every time. It's weird that he's doing that.
Like the Jim from The Office style, just
looking in the camera every time, like Sterling. And he keeps asking Sterling, why do you hate Juwan Taylor?
I don't hate Juwan Taylor. I expect more for $20 million.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Sorry that I have expectations, Jason.
No, we are in agreement with that. And like I said, with like the Pro Football Focus and the bad grades and the penalties, it's like, if you're an offensive lineman, you know how difficult it is to overcome costing your team 10 yards in a game to get back just to square one as an offensive lineman? It takes a lot of amazing blocks for you to get back to square one after causing your team 10 yards. So
I hope
that's the
best this year for him. I think he will improve. I think he'll have less penalties because, again, as Holmes was saying, you're not going to have 23 penalties back-to-back, and my thought was if he does, he's out of the NFL.
Is it going to be the Steve Berline where Lou Holtz told Steve Berline that Steve Berline told us a story in Tahoe, but Lou Holtz told Steve Berline, like, hey, you're not going to have 12 interceptions this year. I can promise you that. And Steve Berline, why? Are we doing something different offensively? What are you seeing? Because if you get to 11, your ass is out of the game.
I think Grunny used to tell that story. I think that was a Lou Holtz Grunny story sometimes.
Yes, and we had Steve Berline on, and he told us that story.
That's awesome.
He told us that story in Tahoe. He's like, oh yeah, that happened. He said, you're not going to get there. And he's like, why? What are we doing offensively? What are you seeing something? Because if you get to this many interceptions, your ass is out of the game, and you're not playing anymore. I don't think that'll be the case with Juwan Taylor. Hey, no. Juwan, you're not going to have 13 penalties this year. Oh, really? Why? Because if you get to 12, you're sitting down and we're putting somebody else at right tackle.
They did it at the Jags game.
They did.
Too. They had enough of that game, but I think you're right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone right after this. We got the cuts before the show is over. Thank you to Daniel Harms and Matt Derrick joining us in the previous hour and segment. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next.
I do love that we now do like almost once every 3 days. We learn about a new old baseball player. That's what we do. We're basically helping you guys for what's the game on your phone where with the
Wordle?
Immaculate Grid.
Immaculate Grid. Thank
yeah.
you. Wild Bill Hallahan. There you go. If you need an all-star game starter in there, all-star.
I got introduced to a game last night called Snaps that baseball players play like on road trips and throughout the minors and everything with one of our coaches on our Little League team. Played pro ball and was in the minor leagues, and he was introducing me to this game, Snaps, and it was fun. It was fun. You know the game, Dylan. So
it's like tennis, right?
Well, it's each snap is a vowel. So one snap is A.
Okay.
Two snaps is
Never
E.
mind. I don't.
Then O. A, E, I, O, U. Right, all the way through the vowels. And when you start a sentence, the first letter of that sentence is the first letter of the guy's name. So it'd be like you have to guess who they're talking about. So last night it was like, had to guess Trevor Hoffman. He's like, all right, how we doing out there? And then like 4 snaps, like, okay, H-O. And then you would say something like, hey, you 5 over, well, not the hey, but like, 5 over there, right there, So it'd be F. Fire it in there, buddy. Come on, F. Man, you got to move back over. So then you're like, so you got to keep, because it's fast. Like they're just talking in a regular conversation.
Now
it's
we
not
gotta
that
take
slow.
a break.
It's not that slow. All right, because I've never played it. I was on the other side. He was the one that played it throughout these. But he's like, look, man, you take a bus trip from here to San Antonio, you find ways, and that was early 2000s. So you weren't just playing on your phone and all of that stuff with the Wi-Fi and the 5G. He's
That's
like,
why I've never played it.
He's like, you find ways to entertain yourself on a bus trip from here to San Antonio, and that was one of the things that they would do is just play snaps and. So he was much better at it than I was, how quick he was going through. And I was the one that was just guessing the names, which was fun.
Dog, trying to learn a new game is hard enough when I am paying attention to games in front of me.
Right, that's true. That is absolutely true.
Trying to explain a game to folk over the radio. You actually did a great job. I actually understand it.
I bet there's some older baseball players that may have played that game before.
Sure.
I bet that there has to be some older
players. We should get
players.
Les in here. We'll talk to Les on Tuesday.
Oh, I would love to know if Les played that game.
Yeah.
On those bus trips, Or maybe it was just a game that he played in his minor league time with the Royals. I don't know. Maybe it was specific to his teams. That was it. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. Royals baseball on the other side. We talked about the bullpen, some of the issues that are going on with the bullpen, and Matt Quattro trying to work his way through this bullpen. But the question comes back to, we focus so much so far this year on what will the Royals do with right field, left field, DH if they continue to struggle, those particular players, while the Royals are winning.
Sure.
How quickly do you need to make a move? Like, what's your patience level with these guys that are out there until you go, all right, enough. It's you know what, or get off the pot. And we got to bring somebody in here because we're in a position to make a run this year that we didn't know we would be in. Like, a year early, fine. Maybe you weren't planning on going and being buyers at the trade deadline because maybe you didn't think you were going to be on a 94, 95 win pace through almost 40% of the season. Great. Expectations change. And now expectations in the city have changed because now the expectation is make the playoffs. It's not just compete. Now it's, hold on, you got like an 80% chance of making the playoffs. They are 6 games up in the playoffs right now. They're 6 games removed from being out of the playoffs, even though we're watching the Guardians. They're only 3 games behind the Guardians. So it's not like they're 10 games out of first, but also, well in the wild card hunt. So those expectations start to change. And while we've spent so much time talking about left field, right field, DH, like, coming up pretty soon, and maybe it's already there, like, all right, do they have to make a move to get a bullpen piece in here? Or do they need to restructure the bullpen as it's currently constructed with some guys from the minors, AAA, some guys with some live arms to bring in there and keep a little more fresh if Stratton's pitching all the time and Anderson's coming in and Schreiber, and it's sort of the same guys you're going to. Like, if you've got guys that are scuffling right now and they seem to be scuffling at the same time at certain times, and you've had winnable games this week and you've lost them because of an inability to keep runs off the scoreboard, offensively at times too, but you got to address that, and I would say pretty quickly.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
You know, we're talking about looking outside the organization and how soon do you go and attack that. And I think the sooner the better. I mean, it might cost a little bit more. It all depends on, you know, we talk about cost acquisition all the time for the NFL, but also for Major League Baseball with Luis Arraez. How much would it cost to go and trade for Luis Arraez? Well, the Royals thought it was a little bit too rich for them from the position that you know they're in right now. And we'll see Luis Arraez tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. And a team that is playing better than last year, but they are not a team that's just a bunch of guys batting .350. I mean, they're a team full of, you know, 750 OPSs, including Tatis and Machado and, you know, guys that are typically going to be 900 OPS guys, but they're winning more games. Won't see Yu Darvish this weekend. But we talk about looking outside the organization to help out with the bullpen or somebody in the outfield, as we were talking about when we ended the last hour. Maybe the answer comes from within, because Chris Bubic looks close to being healthy and able to return. He looks awesome in his rehab starts. What do you have on Wednesday? 3 innings, 7 strikeouts, no runs, 1 hit. Was sitting, you know, lower mid-90s, but you know he can. I mean, he's got the ability to strike guys out. Angel Zerpa's the lefty in the bullpen. You know, Sam Long, I guess, but certainly not Will Smith. But maybe that's the answer, because if you need spot starts, well, they've been talking. I mean, it's been Daniel Lynch the last couple of times. You know, it was Bolin for one, but then Daniel Lynch the last couple. He had a phenomenal spot start, and then he looked good for the beginning of yesterday's game, and then fell apart. As, you know, that happens. Second, third time through the order. Nobody's expecting Daniel Lynch to grow into a true number 3, number 4 hitter or anything like that. That's absurd to even think about with this guy. But a spot start, maybe a bullpen guy, because he also had an outing out of the bullpen. But Chris Bubic could be the answer in the bullpen. He could be the guy that you can go to and, you know, be a really good pitcher, because he was awesome in the 3 starts that he had before he had Tommy John. Small sample size, but that small sample size was with the new slider, because he had never had a slider. It was fastball, curveball, changeup, and the changeup was, you know, a plus pitch. Fastball, curveball, changeup, and then all of a sudden it was fastball, curveball, changeup. Oh, and here's a slider that I'm throwing 20% of the time. Now, maybe that's what resulted in the Tommy John surgery, because he was, you know, had thrown certain pitches, you know, for a long time, and now he integrated a new pitch, and, you know, too much too fast, who knows? Or if that UCL was just going to go anyway, and it was a matter of time as it was just, you know, wearing down. No idea. But now back from Tommy John, pitching well through his minor league starts from A to AA, and then now, you know, the start with AAA and having those 3 innings, 7 strikeouts. It's not that, okay, well, now he can take the spot for Alec Marsh, because Alec Marsh is perfectly fine. It's well, hey, if somebody goes down, you're not specifically looking at Daniel Lynch now or Bolin. You do have somebody that's a more obvious candidate to fill in that spot, but you might have somebody that could be a more reliable bullpen guy, that instead of going to Chris Stratton, if you feel like you got to get 2 innings out of him, you can go to Chris Bubic, who may give you an inning if you have to, or 2 innings if you have to, or be the swing guy, the spot starter to go and give you 3 or 4 innings, depending on, you know, how much he has pitched over that time. But there's nothing wrong with getting a guy who's effective, and if there's no spot in the rotation, to bring him up and put him in your bullpen. We see that happen all the time with good organizations that are winning, that they bring up a young guy that's like, this guy's going to be a starter in Major League Baseball. Yeah, and he starts out in the big leagues in the bullpen.
Mason Miller.
Yeah, right.
I mean, again, I'm not saying Bubic is even close to Mason
right, I know,
Miller,
but just as an example.
We've
seen those before. And
the thought with Mariano Rivera actually originally was he was a starter, failed as a starter, then went to the bullpen. I mean, like, it's not uncommon. The one pushback I'll have on Chris Bubic, not necessarily in general, but as a bullpen arm, I don't know what he gives you look-wise. that's going to be a lot different.
Lefty.
But you already have Sam Long, so you're saying you're going to probably send Sam Long down. You already have obviously Will Smith. I don't know what your
I think you
thoughts
can
on
send
him.
Will Smith down, or he's a great clubhouse guy. Like I mean,
and Zerpa's been great.
Yeah, I would look. I think we talked earlier, like, hey, Sam Long through the limited time with the Royals has looked good, and the AAA this year with the Royals has a 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, and that volatility that comes with being a bullpen arm and a reliever. That it's been every other year he's been good, was bad, was good. Last year bad, maybe this year good. But you're also talking about a guy that you're hoping as you bring him into your system will be productive.
Yeah.
Whereas Chris Bubich has been in your system for a while, they're familiar with him, and they really felt like he had tapped into something before that UCL went last year in the first part of the season. And if they feel that way, well, then now you've got your best lefty out of the bullpen coming in there, and you have him and Zerpa.
So the guy I was looking at originally, and Jack and I, we were talking about this in the first segment today, was Tanner Scott. I would love Tanner Scott. He's also a lefty, but he's phenomenal against lefties and righties. He can be a closer. He can be your eighth inning guy. I think the Royals would probably use him in the closer role, or they do a mix and match with him and MacArthur. That makes a lot of sense. The issue is I think he's going to cost a lot to acquire him. They're going to be teams like the Yankees who are looking for bullpen help. Teams like even the Dodgers who might be looking for bullpen help. I don't know if the Royals can compete with those teams, especially with the fact that they don't have a great bullpen or a great minor league system. Not a lot to give up here, right? A name that I'm looking at right now that I think would be an interesting name, an interesting player, a different style, Michael Kopech. He's with the White Sox.
I mean, he's pumping in there 100 miles an hour.
It's Carlos Hernandez if Hernandez had swing and miss stuff. Yeah, that's basically what it is. He's a really good slider. He throws his fastball 80% of the time, basically, Kopech does. But it's tough to hit. He's 90 percentile in strikeout rate this year. He's a starter who's now transitioned into the bullpen. It's the White Sox, and they're not – obviously it's interconference, right? It's AL Central here, a division. But part of me goes, the White Sox aren't going anywhere. Obviously, there's a lot of relationships between the two organizations based on they took all of the former Royals players who were no longer good in some of the management. I think Michael Kopech, who's 20 years old, has one more year left as arbitration eligible. I think you take a look at a guy like Michael Kopech who throws hard. Again, it's like Carlos Hernandez if Hernandez could ever get strikeouts. The Royals need that. This would be a much different look for them.
Yeah.
And you know my thoughts. I'm done with the Carlos Hernandez
I'm with you.
stuff. I've been done.
Yeah,
I've been done. Michael Kopech, though, I think would be intriguing.
Yeah, I think we've seen enough of Carlos Hernandez to know that, like, well, if he can just control the pitches, like, right, but he's still getting hit. Even when he's throwing strikes, he's still giving up hard contact. And, even on the fastball, like, but the fastball's the stuff, and it's not translating. It's great to have boy, he's got great stuff. I mean, does he?
Yeah, does he?
Because typically great stuff means that you're getting swings and misses. And Kopech gets swings and misses. I mean, he's got a 4 ERA, but I'll take the 4 ERA on the Royals right now for a guy that's got 12 strikeouts per 9. And is, finished 13 games for the White Sox, has, 5 saves. There's another guy that's can be a part of a bullpen to go get an arm, and you need some strikeouts. Okay. Because if you need a strikeout right now, you got bases loaded and 2 outs, and Matt Quattro's like, we got to have a strikeout here. Who are you going to? Bases loaded, nobody out. Nobody out. How about that? Because bases loaded, 2 outs, you don't need a strikeout. So bases loaded, nobody out. You bring in the bullpen, you bring in the infield in, okay? But you'd also like a strikeout. Then you can play double play depth. Who you going to if it's we got to have a strikeout? Name the guy in the bullpen that you say you go to him right now. Could it be different if it was like MacArthur was a huge strikeout guy?
Sure.
And it's like, all right, he's our closer, but the 7th inning is where the game is going to be won right here, right now. We're going to go and get him, and we'll have him pitch the 8th. And hopefully we can add some insurance runs on, and somebody else can come in for the 9th if need be. But right now is the time we got to bring him in. But while he's not walking anybody, he's not the strikeout machine or a guy that you're going to bring in and get that K, get that swing and miss on a good portion. They don't have that right now. I think they are trying to force that with Carlos Hernandez.
Yes.
They're trying to force it that, Carlos Hernandez can be the guy. Well, I mean, that's only because there's a lack of options right now at the big league level. The only reason you're talking about Carlos Hernandez being the guy that's going to be a strikeout guy out of the bullpen that can throw 100 is because you don't have another option right now at the big leagues, and you aren't fully comfortable with guys that are down at AAA and in the minor leagues to come in and do that in a high-leverage situation.
Sure.
What you have is a bird in the hand of Carlos Hernandez has done it before, and he's got stuff that looks good on a radar gun, and he's been in those positions, and you sort of know what you get, so he's going to be our guy that we're going to go to.
Yeah, the 7.39 ERA in 2022, the 5.27 ERA last
getting better.
year.
Trending in the right direction.
5.15 ERA
See?
in his career.
Oh, I thought that was this year.
I don't get how that screams great stuff. Just because it's
unless
fast,
unless
does
there's
not
just a ton of
mean
walks.
it's great.
Like a ton of walks. This guy's got all these strikeouts and a huge ERA. Well, that means he's walking the world.
If he was Wild Bill Hallahan thrown to ace, then yeah, I would say yeah, no one's touching that. They would call him a wizard. But dog, I'm over it. JJ Piccolo, I know you're not listening. Okay,
yes.
Whoever is listening and who has
blink twice if you're listening,
a
JJ.
Slight relationship with JJ Piccolo. Michael Kopech. Just send it on his desk. Just say, hey, take a look at Michael Kopech. Just take a little look-see here. Look at some of the underlying numbers of Michael Kopech. Take a little look-see here.
You know, just get Patrick Mahomes on the phone. I mean,
why wouldn't we just do that? Yeah.
You know, Kopech v. Mahomes back in high school with the playoff game between Mahomes and Kopech when Mahomes threw the no-hitter to beat Kopech. Who's pitching in Major League Baseball. I think it was like 1-0 game that White House ended up winning against Kopech's team, but Mahomes threw a no-hitter on the mound. That guy's good.
Of all pitchers in the Royals bullpen who have thrown at least 9 innings.
It should be Mahomes coming out of the bullpen. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Who do you think has the highest strikeout rate? Strikeouts per 9. Who do you think it is of all Royals pitchers who in the bullpen who've thrown at least 9 innings?
MacArthur.
He's second.
Zerpa.
He is fourth. It's kind of a trick question.
Hernandez.
He is not throwing 9 innings, and he is 3.4. He's actually the last.
I thought that was the trick
question.
question.
He's actually the lowest.
Thought that was the trick question.
Believe it or not, again, smallest sample size, he's actually the lowest strikeout rate in all of the Royals, so that's great.
Will Smith?
No, not Will Smith. He's actually
What's the trick here?
Tyler Duffy.
No.
Tyler Duffy.
I thought you meant currently on the team.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it's kind of a trick question. But yes, it's actually James MacArthur, and then it's believe it or not, Chris Stratton's number 2.
So I was right. If you would have said the highest strikeout per 9
on current
ratio of players that have not been DFA'd by the Royals,
correct,
this year,
it would be.
I was right with MacArthur.
Yeah,
great.
Second,
nailed it.
And then second is Chris Stratton. So again,
well, I mean, oddly, it's weird because he only threw 2/3 of an inning yesterday, and he struck out both guys. He just happened to give up a hit, a walk, a hit, a triple.
Yeah, 16 walks
Other
to
than
22
that,
strikeouts for Chris Stratton this year in 24 innings. Some say not great.
Look, I mean, he's when he strikes guys out, he gets 100% of the outs. That's just simple math.
Well, right now, but you could always be a drop third strike. They get to first base. You know, come on now. The famous 4 strikeout innings.
You don't do that in baseball anymore.
You do
no
it. In,
player.
You do it in 8 U. I guarantee
That's
there's
right.
a few of those.
Yeah, you don't do it in Major League Baseball. Even Bobby Witt, who's fast, that stood in the box and watched the ball get away, thought, "Do I really have to run? All right, I'll run down to first. Here we go. Oh, I'm out. Sorry." Like, when's the last time you saw a Major League hitter swing at a third strike, the ball was dropped, and they just sprint?
I know who it was.
They don't just stand there in the box and let him tag him like, oh,
I know
because
exactly
they're going to be
who
out.
It was. I know John Buck.
Jean Buck?
John Buck did it. And
he,
and he said after a game, he goes, it was so far outside. He goes, I swung because I knew there was no, it was along the lines of I swung because I knew there was no chance the catcher was going to get it. And so he just basically jogged down to first base. So I remember that.
Jean Buck. Chestnut checkers. That's what that guy's playing. He plays chestnut checkers.
I was surprised it wasn't like Brian Bannister to John Buck or Miguel Olivo. Olivo in the All-Star game.
You're surprised by that? Yeah.
I was surprised. I thought that would be the battery mates.
It makes sense that you would be surprised by that, but that is not the case. Before we take a break, I did want to mention the SEC is changing the way that they are doing the college football windows now. Thank you, for somebody having some common sense. The Big 12, unfortunately, will still be doing the same thing of the 6-day and 12-day window. We found out yesterday the first 3 games of the season for KU, K-State, the start times, Mizzou, start times for the first 3 games of the season. But on June 11th, the SEC will release the entire schedule for the entire season and start times in windows. So you can have a early window of playing at 11 or noon. You could have a afternoon window of 2:30 or 3:30, and you could have a night window of 5 to 7 in the SEC.
You know why?
With certain games that are qualified as, quote, flex games that could be moved around. I don't know how many of those Mizzou will have this year of quote, flex games. Even if they have 1 or 2, the entire season you can look through and go, hey, 5 weeks from now, Mizzou's playing at either 11 or noon.
Well, it's awesome
Great.
if you want to go to a game, too.
Yes.
Now, because I don't want to go to an 11 a.m. game. Sorry, I'm not waking up that I've done it, and it's not as fun. I want to tailgate. I want to go to Booch's and grab some burgers. I want to have some fun.
Take your word for it.
I need to crush some beers out there.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to
drink at 7 a.m.
Drive a Range Rover
is tough. It's tough on a man. So I like this. And by the way, you know why the SEC is doing this?
But the Big 12's not doing it yet. But go ahead. Why?
It just means more.
Well, that's true.
It just means more.
Well, they brought in Oklahoma and Texas, and they're like, well, you know what? Oklahoma and Texas, if they're here, they demand to know when their games are going to be played.
Make them all play at 11 a.m.
But the Big 12's still not doing it. So the Big 12's still going to have the 12 and 6-day window.
You know why?
It's going to be there. What, it doesn't mean as much?
It doesn't mean as much.
Yeah, I figured.
It does not mean
I
as
figured
much.
that. But how many times, and it still sucks because I'm going to have to answer with an I don't know because of KU and K-State. But it'll be like, my wife will be like, in that weekend, what time do they play? And it's like 3 weeks away. And I'm like, I don't know. I honestly do not know. At least now I'll know when one of them plays. But it might be a week when, KU and K-State both play on Friday the 13th. They both play Friday the 13th.
Spooky.
Yes. KU plays UNLV. And that night, K-State plays
Barry Odom. Ooh, spooky.
That's right. And that's the K-State Arizona game. That's that
Wildcats.
That's right.
Versus Wildcats.
That Big 12 matchup.
Also spooky.
K-State Arizona Friday night. So that weekend, it'd be like, oh, hey, when do the teams play on Saturday? Great, I'll tell you exactly when they play because I only have to worry about one of them on Saturday being a certain window because those Thursday and Friday night games are set with game times. But those Saturday games, we have no idea. But June 11th, we'll know in the SEC what the entire schedule looks like, which it's smart. Okay, here are some games that we may flex. Great. So that weekend, if it's a noon game or 11 o'clock game, that might be an afternoon game, or it might be so good they're going to move that tonight. Sure. That one you need to be aware of, one way or another. I don't know why it has to be that difficult in the Big 12. I mean, the SEC's move. Did ABC demand this? And if they did, well, then ESPN would be doing the same thing with the Big 12. Since all of those games being on ESPN family of networks.
I've given you the real reason why.
And if it's Big 12 plus, just give us the damn game time when it's going to be on Big 12 plus.
It's because Johnson sausages in the cornhole events, they have to plan around that. They have to plan when they're going to play the Johnsonville sausage reruns.
I think you're wrong about that. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's why. I think I think you're pulling my chain. I do love the 2 bye week seasons. I love the years when there's multiple bye weeks.
I hate it, dude.
I love it.
Why? I get excited to watch some football, and I'm
feels like the season's extended a little bit, and you get some rest mixed in throughout, so you're not like, wow, you're playing 8 straight games and then the bye week and all of that stuff. I like it. It feels like the season's a little bit longer. I mean, it is because you're throwing a week of a bye. So
it depends if your team's good or bad. If your team's good, you hate it. For me, because I want to watch.
Well, if your team's bad, you got a longer season. That sucks.
You didn't lose this week. You get to hear those lame jokes. Yeah. I don't know.
But for Missouri gets the bye week before they go to Texas A&M and before they play Oklahoma.
Oh, it's great as far as on-field performance, but as far as myself wanting to watch the Tigers play some football,
yeah,
it's hard for me. That's a week where I'm going to guarantee I forget that it's a bye, and I wake up and go, can't wait to watch the Tigers.
They've also moved some things around, too. So the Egg Bowl is no longer Thanksgiving anymore.
Which is kind of...
They moved that to Black Friday. But if you're, Mizzou fan or whatever, or planning on watching that Mizzou-Arkansas, battle line rivalry, that's now moved to Saturday. It's no longer Black Friday, which is fine because it won't conflict with the Chiefs.
When's Arkansas actually going to be good? Because every time Mizzou beats Arkansas, it's always, they're in a down year. But they've had down years since Darren McFadden.
I think
eventually it's like, you ever going to have a good year? Or?
Yeah, and how'd that Darren McFadden team do in the Cotton Bowl?
Didn't do too well. Yeah,
That's right.
Arkansas fans, I just have questions. That's all. Just questions.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Trying to look at the other bye. Kansas State gets the bye before they go and take on Prime in Colorado. That's a tough one.
Bring your Louie.
Ooh, boy.
Bring your
Louie.
Louie.
That's a tough one right there. But it is Kansas State has the middle part of their schedule is an interesting one because they play 4 games between bye weeks. 3 of the 4 on the road. The home game is against Kansas. It's an interesting stretch. At Colorado, at West Virginia, at Houston. Now, they ain't going to Oklahoma State, and teams that, might be good this year, Iowa State or whatever. They're going to Colorado. You should take care of business there.
Yeah.
Going to West Virginia, I think you should take care of business there. Going to Houston, we'll see, but you should take care of business there. And then Kansas at home. They can win all 4 of those games. I like the 2 bye.
I like K-State's schedule. K-State's schedule's pretty tasty.
Yeah, I'm going to put some money on.
I thought actually the over in all 3, Mizzou, K-State, and KU this year.
KU's got the odd one though, where they have bye weeks separated by 2 games. Yeah. They're off. They play 2 games, and they're off again. I'd rather have those split, where I think K-State is 4-4-4, or they're 5-4-3. Well, here's my prediction. It's 5-4-4. So I think they'll play the Big 12 championship game. So I think K-State's going to have 5-4-4. Mizzou is 4-4-4. 4 games bye week, 4 games bye week, 4 games SEC champion. 4-4-5. SEC championship game on December 7th.
Man, yeah, KU's schedule's not bad either. Just looking at it.
Well, you take Oklahoma and Texas off the schedule, all of a sudden you're
playing Lindenwood, Illinois, UNLV, West Virginia, who has really been not good. That's at West Virginia, so at least that's on the road. So that's a hopeful road win. TCU, that might be tough, even though it's at Lawrence. At Arizona State.
Well, no, it's not in Lawrence. So.
Oh, is that the Arrowhead?
It's going to be at Arrowhead or out at
I guess
Sporting Park, Children's Mercy.
At Arizona State is again, I think
TCU's at Arrowhead.
Yes, yeah.
Houston's at Arrowhead. Iowa State's at Arrowhead. Colorado's at Arrowhead.
So then,
but Lindenwood,
UNLV.
I think it's just Lindenwood and UNLV are the ones that are at Children's Mercy. The rest are going to be at Arrowhead.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
The conference games.
But either way, I'm looking at KU's schedule. I don't know what their over/under total is. I know last I looked at it, I like the over. I'm not betting against them right now. I thought they might take a step back record-wise last year, even though I thought they might be a better team than the year prior. Man, they backed that up. KU 9-4. If you're a Jayhawk fan, I think you're pretty thrilled with what's going on there.
I'm hoping that with the SEC doing this year, that the other conferences will then get on board and stop at the 6 and 12-day window, that give us a window that they'll be playing in of the morning, afternoon, night, with some games that could be flexed. So you have some sort of planning that you can have for the season in college football. It's just, I know it's for TV and all that stuff, but the SEC is going to the ABC this year. If there was ever a year that the SEC would say, no, we want to have a 6 or 12-day window so we can have the best matchups that we can put on ABC with our first year with the SEC on ABC. It would be this year. Instead, this is the year that they're going, we can flex some games, but we're going to give you the windows right away. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling, tell you who is lighting it up on the other side. More Zone next.
Time for Who's Lighting It Up. Brought to you by Greenlight Dispensary, Kansas City's #1 trusted source for all cannabis products. Try their new AI Bud Tender to help you shop their huge menu online. Visit greenlightdispensary.com for more info.
All right, hanging out on a Friday edition of The Zone, heading into the weekend. Program coming your way at 2 o'clock. Then we've got Best Of at 6 o'clock, Sporting Kansas City show at 7 o'clock, and then a little sports night with Covell tonight at 8 o'clock right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Royals in action tonight against the Padres. Michael Wacha taking on Dylan Cease. And we will see if the Royals can get back to their winning ways. They did. They broke the losing streak, or the skid of 3 games, and then did not find a way to split the series with the Twins yesterday, unfortunately. All right, let's talk about who is lighting it up. So there might be plenty of local people that we could look at that might be lighting it up. I don't know. But the person that is lighting it up, and the Royals are going to see him very quickly, right around the corner, starting on Tuesday for a good portion over the next month, and that is the Cleveland Guardians' Jose Ramirez. He is lighting it up. You want to talk about a guy carrying a team, an offense that is filled with guys that are batting 200, and yet Jose Ramirez is sitting there just mashing. In Jose Ramirez's last 22 games, so over this 22-game stretch, he's OPSing 1.2 over 22 games. He's got 10 home runs. He's got 8 doubles, which, by the way, over the course of the season would be 74 home runs and 59 doubles, what he's doing right now. He would be pacing for 214 RBIs.
Seems good.
For what he's done in the last 22 games. He's batting .340, so essentially Salvi. In the last 22 games, he's batting as Salvi. But he has, he's got the same amount of walks to strikeouts in the last 22 games. He's also got, might as well throw in the 3 stolen bases that he has as well. Jose Ramirez is crazy hot right now. And when you got a guy who is a star like Jose Ramirez, who's swinging the bat like this, and 4 times a game, he's got a chance to make a huge difference in a game that might be a 1 or 2 run game, which Cleveland's been playing in a number of those. And he comes through with a huge 2-run shot or a bases clearing double or a solo shot or whatever, and constantly getting on base every time through the order. Yeah, you can carry a team. And the Royals are going to have to figure out what they're going to do with Jose Ramirez starting on Tuesday in that series. And it might be one of those to where I'll let somebody else hurt us, but I'm not going to let the guy who is killing everybody right now be the guy that is the difference in the game. Because that would seem, if Jose Ramirez beat you, you'd be like, why did we let that happen? If somebody else beats you, you know what? Tip your cap. Tip your cap, and you know what? Hey, you played well that game. You got us on that particular night. But you've got your batting average of let me go to last night's game and their loss to the Rockies, the Guardians. Down the line, 216. Jimenez is batting 271. Ramirez is up to 271. Josh Naylor's 240. Rodriguez 158. Arias 215. Manzardo 232. Hedges 125. Is it Rocchio? I don't know. I probably should know. But
Brian Rococo.
Yeah, sure. He's batting 207. And then, I said Austin Hedges with a 125, and he's their backup catcher because their regular catcher, Bo Naylor, is batting 180.
Mendoza line. Real true with this team.
It's a little bit like the Royals. Like you look through the Royals batting average through. It's like, okay, you got some guys near the top, and then it drops off pretty quickly. And you got a stud, a star, an MVP-type player in Jose Ramirez, in Bobby Witt. But I'm not seeing
Stephen Kwan.
He's on the IL. I'm not seeing the Salvi, right? Because Josh Naylor isn't Salvi.
No.
So if I got to, and Jimenez and Michael Garcia, maybe similar, right?
Yeah.
If I walk Ramirez 4 times in the game, I'm not mad. starting Tuesday. If Ramirez if Ramirez walks 12 times in his 12 plate appearances in those games, might be better off doing that regardless of the situation than pitching to him every time.
Yeah, no,
I know you take it case by case. You take it case by case. But I can't let him be the one that beats me.
Sure.
Starting on Tuesday. But he's lighting it up. He's the guy that's lighting it up for me because he's lighting up Major League Baseball right now, and a big reason why the Guardians continue to win, even with their lineup looking a lot like the complaints in Cleveland about the lineup like we have here. But you've got a superstar. And Bobby Witt's, his superstardom for a couple of weeks carried the Royals offensively, and you can see that happening with different MVP level players. But who's lighting it up for you?
The backcourt of the Mavericks, Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. I know I've talked about him a good amount on the show, just more or less to mess with you a little bit with Kyrie Irving, but they're so damn good, man. Like it's just unbelievable. In a win and move on game, right? You can clinch Game 5, you're in Minnesota. You let one slip through your grasp. You could have swept in Dallas. You kind of let that one slip through. You go up 69-40 in the first half. That's what it was as you head into the second half. Kyrie Irving, 36 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Luka Doncic going 14 of 22 from the field, by the way, 6 of 10 from three-point line. 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 36 points as well. 72 points between that duo. They're just so damn good. They're so enjoyable to watch. I know Minnesota fans are complaining about a couple fouls. Dog, you think 21 points? 21 points, that was the difference in the fouls that were going against you? No, it's because your team collapsed the entire Western Conference Finals. Karl Anthony Towns finally got something going, but it was obviously too little, too late. Again, he saved you one game. He saved you one game. Because he got nuclear hot for the fourth quarter in Dallas. That was it. You guys were completely outplayed. The Mavericks move on, and I thought Kyrie and Luka, their performance was just phenomenal.
By the way, this got resurfaced last night, and Dylan will get who's lighting it up for you, but this got resurfaced last night. So during the draft of 2018, Woj, tweeting out all the stuff, says that Atlanta and Dallas have agreed to a deal. League sources tell ESPN they'll trade numbers 3 and 5 picks, sending Luka Doncic to Dallas and Trae Young to Atlanta, sources said. Dallas will send Atlanta a future first. The replies are what this is about.
Good.
Because that night. If you ask me, the Hawks have won this trade. Luka maybe can score, but Trae Young makes the Hawks and will take the Hawks further in the playoffs than Luka will with the Mavs. Dallas got fleeced. Luka's a good player, but giving up a future first to move up 2 spots when you could have still ended up with Mo Bamba or Michael Porter Jr., that's just dumb. Some other ones. Mark Cuban nailed it. Doncic is a golden child. He's going to be amazing. So not all of them are dumb. Hawks just made one of the worst trades in NBA history.
Oh, if you would have heard me on this night, first off, when he did not go 1-1, I said, what are the Phoenix Suns doing? I go, this is dumb. How do you draft DeAndre Ayton instead of Luka Doncic? And then the Sacramento Kings drafted Marvin Bagley, and I go, what are the Kings doing?
Yeah.
What they always do.
Then I realized that they're the Kings. But I said from the get-go, I go, Luka Doncic is the best player in this draft. I thought it was a decent draft. I go, by far. Yep. Luka was my Wemby. Like, I kept saying, Luka is my Wemby before we obviously know what Wembanyama is. But Luka Doncic was so damn polished.
Well, another one, bad trade for the Hawks. Atlanta bleeped up. Mark Cuban walked away with the best player in the draft.
Yep.
Some other ones, a lot of people are like, Adrian, you weren't supposed to give this up. You weren't supposed to be, tipping off any of these picks. I thought you were not supposed to do this anymore. Another one says, Atlanta just got housed with this one. Atlanta better be bleeping right. Yes, yes, hell yes. Thank you, Trae Young. That one was wrong. Why does Dallas do this? Why would they need him? They need Trae Young.
Trae Young's been good, by the way.
Shake my head, Mark Cuban. What are you doing? Dallas, WTF! 3 exclamation points. A future number 1? ? Fire Donnie now! ! Exclamation point! How the NBA is played today from the 3-point line, and you're giving up Trae Young? Mean, mad, red face emoji. So,
Dog.
It's just funny looking through some of those at the time.
Trae Young's been damn good, too.
He's been fine. He's been fine, but some of those that are like, Trae Young is so much better for today's NBA than it's fine, but some of this is terrible. The Hawks are going to win the game, but win the trade. But there's a lot of them. They're like, look, man, like one of them agree with you. The Mavs just ended up with the best player in this draft.
The best player in the draft, and I said by far. I didn't think it was even close. I think the issue is, especially it's getting better now. But even in 2018, you see these guys play in college, and you have not seen Luka Doncic play. No one's seen him. You've seen the highlights, right? But not many people are watching Slovenia games.
I do.
But like people saw Trae Young dominate. But also, I think people sometimes, the average person, I'm not trying to act like I'm smarter than them, but I think people get enamored by college numbers, and they don't understand the translation to the NBA. It's a much different game. It's a much different style. Trae Young's been great, but Trae Young had a ceiling that Luka Doncic was going to shatter past. Luka Doncic is a much more, you can build your team around. Trae Young, you have to have a specific system built just for him, and it's going to be hard being a 6'1 guard. I know everyone's going to point to Steph Curry and the shooting ability of him, but they also had Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. They had a whole team that was surrounded. Yeah, maybe you can win with Trae Young as your number one, but you have to have a damn good team around him, and Trae Young, as good as he is not Steph Curry. That was the only outcome that was going to make that, in my opinion, palatable. They got fleeced, man.
So the guy that tweeted out that said that Dallas got fleeced, he was one of the first replies.
Yeah.
It's like, Dallas got fleeced. Luka's a good player, giving up a future first, move up 2 spots. You could have ended up with Mo Bamba or Michael Porter Jr., that tweet. He has replied to his own tweet a lot.
Yeah.
Like 2 years later, I'm already acknowledging how wrong I was. Luka, top 15 player in the league already. This says another tweet, another response to his own tweet. Michael Porter Jr. might make this old tweet not look all that bad, but what was I thinking on Mo Bamba? It's great. Another tweet to him says, if Luka continues at this pace, you have to put this tweet on a T-shirt. And he goes, LOL, and get dragged even more? Because he's the first response, so everybody's replying to that one.
And then do you know who was picked with that first-round draft pick? I can tell you right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Who was it?
The superstar, that is Cam Reddish.
Oh, yeah, for the who's currently now playing for the Hawks.
Cam Reddish is now currently on the Lakers now.
He's
From
not on the
Hawks to the Knicks to the Trailblazers to the Lakers.
The Lake Show. All right, who's lighting it up for you, Dylan?
Quick one, Eminem dropping a single this morning, and the internet reviews are good, saying he's back. He also did
That's what Sterling said when I walked in.
It was great, dude.
It's like,
it sounded like old M not trying to sound like...
Yep.
Cool.
That's what they're saying.
Haven't
He even
heard it
has
yet.
a lot of similarities to the Without Me music video from
yeah,
'02.
it's
his
badass,
music video
dude.
for today, and it's good.
Play it. Play it right now.
Can you, though?
No, I don't
No,
think I
let's
can.
not
Yes,
do
you
that.
can.
I doubt it.
The clean version hasn't come out yet.
The FCC won't stop. The FCC's not listening right now, Dylan.
The FCC
won't let me be or let me be me, so let me see. They try to shut me down on MTV.
It feels so empty without me.
Come on.
What cuts next?
All right, again, if you haven't heard, Greenlight Dispensary is helping everyone out this May with a No Hangovers May at Greenlight Dispensary. And today is the last day that you can take advantage of their Flower Box specials. Their best cure for the worst part about a good time is to give everyone special pricing on their Flower Box special this month. Flower Box specials feature locally grown flower from right here in Kansas City. Greenlight Dispensary is voted the #1 dispensary in the state of Missouri by you, and they're also voted the #1 loyalty program in the state of Missouri. That program helps you rack up points that can be used on any of the products in their store. So you can check them out at any one of their 4 KC area locations. Bannister Road in 435, Nolan Road in Independence, 135th and State Line is my location, and then Harrisonville, Missouri as well. And when you go today, mention 810 sent you and get 20% off your first visit when you go to any of those 4 KC area Greenlight locations. But before you go, check out and see if the product that you want will be in stock at greenlightdispensary.com. That's greenlightdispensary.com.
All right, wrapping things up here on this Friday edition of the show. The program comes up next, and then we've got bonus hour, Sporting KC show, and then Sports Night with Covell. Today, about an hour and a half from now, is when the program and event will start there at the White House with the Chiefs visiting. So about 3:15 Central Time is when that event will start.
Oh, you have time to make it then.
Yeah, if I get on that Taylor Swift flight.
Yeah.
Get on a Taylor Swift flight right now. I go be there. Does Patrick let Travis say "my fellow Americans"? Or does Joe Biden say, "Hey, Travis, I know you really wanted to say this," and bring him up to say, "my fellow Americans"?
That's the easiest layup Joe has right there.
Yes.
Just calling him up after he's done and acting like it's part of the plan.
Travis, go ahead.
It'd be better if he called him Jason.
You have the con? That would be great. Jason.
Hey, Jason, come on up
Kelsey.
here.
Or let Travis walk into the press pool as the press secretary today.
That'd be good.
That'd be awesome.
Give the update on what's going on. That would totally be fine. Nobody would think that this is serious.
Yeah, there's nothing serious that happened yesterday. They would want to get questions on.
Serious about this.
Yeah.
I'd let Kelsey weigh in on it, I mean, let's see what everybody's got to say. So that goes on today, 3:15, and maybe there will be something where we won't know if it's planned or organic. Because last year that was organic. I thought it was planned 100%, but turns out it was organic.
I feel like he would do a Bill Clinton voice, Travis Kelce.
Travis would? I don't know that he's good with impressions. I know he does a hell of an impression of the best tight end that ever lived. So he does that really well. All right, let's play the cuts here is what happened this week here on the station, this show, and other shows. None of it is out of context at all. Dylan, take it away.
I will say in the words of George Michael, you have to have faith, okay? You have to have faith.
Great song.
I want to see some freedom here, and that's Wanya Morris as a starting left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a little careless whisper here, okay, just for your ears.
It's an interesting way of going about describing Chiefs tackles. George Michael and some careless whisper. Good to know. Yeah, if we need more of that. Good as a shirt.
It's a deep V.
Josh.
Okay, great.
What? So I'm giving strokes out.
Oh, my God.
Come on, see, this is what I'm talking
what
about.
What could that possibly be? That's not out of context at all.
This is what I'm talking about. Where's the nuance, boys?
There's not out of context.
Where's the nuance?
You said that. Like, we didn't have to cut that up and mix it together. Those were words that were connected by you in a row.
Just giving out strokes.
Consecutive words used.
Oh, my gosh.
5,
Yeah.
4, 3,
I'm
2.
going to kick myself in the face.
I'd like to see that.
I couldn't kick myself in the
That is the
feet.
third strike.
Couldn't kick myself in the feet. Keep going.
I'm terrified to rip this off. There's so much hair attached to this.
Oh, is that Shane?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was about. Maybe a Band-Aid, maybe not. I don't know.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind was all right.
It's an excellent movie. Star Wars was a lighthearted romp.
Star Wars was a lighthearted romp.
It's a rom-com. It's a rom-com.
One of the great lines I've ever heard. Close Encounters was a great movie. Star Wars was a lighthearted romp. They came out the same year. I think that was the conversation. Keep going.
Cis-dinner follower, that's what I was thinking, that it was somebody who was in a subservient position.
Yes.
An acolyte, so I did kind of know it.
So Curtis is an acolyte of cheese.
I'm not subservient.
He might be an acolyte of you.
That might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. I think Danny had the second one figured out.
An acolyte. Subservient.
Man.
Keep rolling.
You said American cheese isn't cheese.
Well, American cheese, it's like the worst cheese ever. They decide, let's take all the wonderful things about cheese and take them out and make the blandest, crappiest thing ever, but it's still okay.
I love the dismount. The blandest crap. He was talking about how he loves any and all cheese.
Yeah, I'm a big cheese guy, too.
But even American cheese is the blandest, crappiest thing ever. But it's still okay. It's still cheese.
It's like pizza.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just pizza.
Putting that ass behind it.
Seriously, how could you possibly?
What?
I'm telling you, you've got like a daily quota that you try to
When
hit.
did I say putting that ass behind it?
Just now?
Well,
right in the butt.
Left in the butt would make more sense because it's
Right
4
in the
letters.
That dude.
I left it in the butt.
I get paid in mustache cream.
That's an odd endorsement.
That's my take. I mean, nothing against Curtis, but
what do you have against Curtis?
Nothing. Not one damn thing.
First of all, I'd just like to point out that Haas did say with all due respect. And as we learned from Ricky Bobby, if you say with all due respect, you can say whatever you want after
that. Clean slate. Which usually means I'm about to disrespect you.
I said with all due respect.
I'm about to crush you.
That is true. Hosmer did reply to Curtis and go, with all due respect, this is an awful take. I feel like there was some disrespect there. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a dumbass.
I could be
I think I enjoy Mick's laugh at you saying you're a dumbass more than you saying you're a dumbass.
This next one is selfishly left in for me, and I think all of us.
Okay.
Tavares, right in the butt.
What?
No.
What?
What? No. No.
Yeah, this is the Bill Knight Invitational.
I love Beavers.
R.I.P. Bill Walton. R.I.P. Bill Walton. Just randomly talking about Phil Knight. I love Beavers.
Having these two guys, they're just like Dory. They're just swimming right now. Just keep swimming.
I love that reference, man.
Was that Dave Merritt?
Yeah, that guy's got some. Talking about Jaden Hicks and Kamal Haddon. That guy's he's got some kids that were around when you had Nemo going on. You've got experience playing with yourself, right?
I like playing with myself. Yeah,
I knew that.
We're talking about golf.
I mean, are we?
18 holes. I'll play by myself. I'll play as a single. So I'm giving strokes out.
That was golf too. That's why I remember.
Thank you.
It doesn't seem like you were playing with yourself on that one.
That was a threesome.
Seemed like there were other people involved in that one there.
It was a threesome.
Sterling.
What? I don't get it.
So when you guys get together and play, is it typically, how often do you play and it's just you playing around a golf? And how often is it like with you and some buddies getting together? Genuinely curious about this.
Normally with other folk. Every once in a while, I'll play by myself.
Yeah. By the way, I wasn't asking that so you would say that, even though Dylan just marked that.
Wait, what? Dylan?
I was genuinely curious how often it would be like,
unfair. This is...
Got to restock the cupboard.
Yeah. Because Mick will be like, all right, well, see you guys. I'm going to go play golf. Really? With who? No way. Just going to go play. Like, let me get 9 in. Let me get 18. Just by going.
Wrong with it?
Which I don't think there's any. That sounds like a relaxing afternoon. If there's nobody in front of me on the course,
it's beautiful.
And I'm playing by myself because I don't have to worry about somebody behind me, especially if there's like a foursome or something like that behind you. It's like, oh, I can play 2 or 3 different balls here and just relax and go around the course. That's a nice afternoon on a nice day.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Join me sometime. But you can be the group after me, actually. So that way we're not in the same group.
Yes, I'll be playing by myself, and you'll be the threesome, and I'll ask, can I play through, guys? And then I'll be the guy that steps up to the shot and chunks it and embarrasses myself and breaks my club.